Living with the sacrifice we made, running in circles. We never had time to live it all. Roll my soul. Living with the sacrifice we made, running in circles. We never had time to live it all. Roll my soul. Roll my soul. Time to live
What is going on, guys? Thank you so very much for joining us right here on Tuesday night. It is episode 53 for your June 18th, 2024. I am your host, JD from New York, as always, joined by my co-host and very good friend on Tuesday nights. We are the Tuesday Night Titans, JD and the Solid Monster. Thank you, guys, so very much for joining us on your Tuesday evening, wherever you may be. Brother, what is going on, man? How you doing?
I believe in Joe Hendry.
Now, Shawn Michaels apparently does not believe in Joe Hendry.
Even though I was dumped out of the ring #1 in the Battle Royal.
That's a shame, ain't it?
You know
That's a
what? Not only
fucking
was he
shame.
dumped out first in the Battle Royal tonight, but Frankie Kazarian was also in the Battle Royal, and he was the one who helped dump him out of the ring. So it looks like they're working a TNA storyline on NXT television.
Not surprised, but Joe Hendry getting eliminated, man. It's quite the shame. I don't know what's going on with him, honestly. I feel like TNA doesn't even realize how hot he is, and they're just completely missing the ball with him. I don't know.
First one. Now let's look at what's happened so far in this relationship between NXT and TNA. We had the TNA Knockouts champion Jordan Grace, who looked great at the Battleground show, go in there and lose to Roxanne Perez straight up and got pinned in the middle of the ring. And now we have Joe Hendry making an appearance in NXT and being dumped out #1 in the Battle Royal. I made the comment on my show. I said, I feel like TNA in this relationship is just happy to be here.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, we're just happy to be a part of this right now. Whatever happens, we're glad to be working with WWE, and whatever happens, happens.
OTS Tribal Queen in the chat says, I believe he lasted 15 seconds.
Oh, good. Okay.
That's crazy.
All right. Well, there you go. Hey.
I don't know what's going on with this relationship, man, but listen.
But hey, you know what? They sent Tatum Paxley to TNA, and she did the job. So I guess that evens things out.
Yes, to the sound of crickets. I heard, and that was that. But we will get into a couple of notes on NXT, guys. We got a note on the Battle Royal tonight, but we have a loaded show for you here on episode 53. I got to ask, bro, how was your night last night? Because that shit was off the wall, crazy on my end. I know a lot of people are looking forward to what we have to say collectively about this Wyatt Sick6. Looks like the album that Slipknot should have came out with a couple of years ago. But I thought what they did was fantastic. What was your feeling going into your stream last night? Were you as excited as I was?
Yeah, I mean, I was excited because you could tell that there were more people than usual, and they were engaged in what was going on. Like, you could tell, like, when there's a big pay-per-view and something big happens, something either really, really cool or really, really just angering, and it, you know, gets everybody all riled up. I kind of had that feeling last night. You could tell people were excited to talk about what happened at the end of the show. It was quite the cliffhanger to go off the air with, but the thing that I liked about Raw, there were so many different things going on.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really just take a step back and think about what we saw last night, obviously everybody's going to be talking about the Wyatt Sick6. You had that. You had the Drew McIntyre situation. You had Chad Gable and everything that was going on with him. You had the return of Seth Rollins. I mean, it was and plus the Money in the Bank qualifying matches. So those are the shows that I think are the most fun. Even if you don't necessarily like every single segment, you can't watch that show and say that there wasn't a lot going on, that you can either get invested in or get, excited about. And those are the Raws that I find to be the most interesting. And you and I have sat through a lot of boring Raws over the years. So I think when we have a night like that, we can appreciate it more.
Yes, those 2019 Raws, man, will live in infamy. Oh, my
18
goodness.
and 19.
18 and 19, yes.
19,
How could I forget? Holy shit. We're going to get into a bunch of what happened last night, guys, on Raw. We got a couple of AEW notes. We got some CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, Clash at the Castle opinions to be stated here. I got attacked from all sides because I actually enjoyed the ending of Clash of the Castle. God forbid.
How dare you?
I know, how dare me. But we will get into all that stuff, guys. Thank you so very much for joining us on episode 53. The usual spiel. Get the super chats in. We will hang out at the end of the show. I already see you guys having some fun in the chat. Get them on in. They are open. We will hang out with our cold drinks at the end of the stream. Please make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. We got 1,700 and growing already in here. So make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. Let's try for 1,000 likes if we can on tonight's Tuesday Night Titans. Follow Jason and I on social media. Everything you need is linked down in the description. And hit that subscribe button for both of our respective channels as well. Everything, again, is linked in the description. So let's get the party started, brother. What do you want to talk about?
Well, I think since you were talking about how you were attacked for it, and since we're a few days removed, why don't we start out with Clash at the Castle?
Okay.
And some of the key stuff that happened there on that show. And I mean, if you want, we could dive right into the World Heavyweight Championship match, unless you want to share some thoughts on some of the other things that happened on that show. I happen to think that the I Quit match was the best match on the entire show. I enjoyed that match the most. Which one?
I agree. The I Quit match was the best match of the night. But I will say, and I will admit when I am wrong on something or I'm late to something, I got to give a major shout out and praise to Damian Priest. I thought that was the best performance of his entire year on Saturday afternoon. I thought with the foot injury, quote unquote, or the ankle injury where he got tied up in the ropes, I actually thought that botch made the whole match, and it made the whole world of a difference. It actually enhanced the match, if you want to really believe it. I thought he performed incredible on Saturday night.
He was working on one foot. I mean, he gave him a razor's edge on one leg.
Yeah.
And the whole time I'm watching that going, oh man, that don't look good, and it could be anything. I mean, it doesn't have to be a broken ankle. I mean, he could have sprained it badly. It could have gone a number of different horrible ways. But kudos to him. He took something, and I'm sure also, anytime something like that happens, it's embarrassing. Like Braun Breakker on TV last night, slipping off the top rope. In his head he was kicking himself. He was probably all pissed off. And then by the time that entire segment was over, nobody was talking about the botch. They were talking about the camera angle and the spear on the outside. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Damian Priest, what I said, in my review is I would still see the occasional critique of his work in the ring. Like, oh, he's not at the level of a main event world champion performer. Some people just, they couldn't see it. And I would think that most of that criticism was probably already silenced a long time ago. But if there was any lingering doubts about him, he shut people up on Saturday, because I thought that was an excellent match in the main event. And he's had a series of them. And I thought it was the best match that he's had since the street fight in Puerto Rico with Bad Bunny.
Yes. Agreed. So the main event saw CM Punk, no matter how outlandish it was, with Jessica Carr giving him a referee shirt. She didn't really even ask why, or she tried to, and Punk just kind of blew past her. But CM Punk, with the original referee down, slides in. Camera angle was beautifully shot. We didn't really see who it was facially until Drew McIntyre realized that a 3 count was not going to be made. He looks up. He sees the ghost of Christmas past staring him in the face. CM Punk right there. And the entire match just got thrown to shit. At that point, he backs Punk into the corner, chokes him out. Punk gives him a low blow. Damian Priest gives him a South of Heaven. And that's all she wrote for Clash of the Castle. Damian Priest retains the title, and Drew McIntyre is screwed. What was it? What was people were calling it? The Glasgow screw job, or the Scotland screw job, whatever they were calling it.
I call it the Scottish screw job. But
Yeah.
call it what you will. It's something that people should have seen coming. If anything, I'm shocked that people were surprised by the ending of that show.
And that's what caused this hysteria on social media. People were like, well, I don't believe you like that, man. If this happened in AEW, you would have shit all over it. Well, first of all, they got to get their ducks in a row over there. They don't really have the best track record this year for long-term vision. But, Jason, this was so pre-calculated and premeditated with Punk showing up there. We haven't seen him before Clash, maybe 3-4 weeks off television. He wasn't even on television. You knew he was going to show up at some point in that match. We didn't know how he was going to show up. But when he showed up, he was probably going to be a deciding factor in the outcome of the match. And in this creative plan that Triple H put forth, it was Punk screwing McIntyre out of the World Championship, and people were just up in arms. Now, you know, I will say, if you're paying $700, $800 up front to sit there and you want to pay good money, premium money to see your boy win the World Championship, hometown hero win the World Championship, and he doesn't, and that's the way the show goes off, I understand why people would be upset. It's just like any sporting event. You know, I've been to games, I've seen games where there's a rowdy audience, something doesn't happen, fucking shit being thrown on the field. You see it all the time. But in this case, a lot of people were like, well, that's the worst ending. Triple H's division is creative, is awful. But at the end of the day, Jason, you and I talked about it literally last week where we were going into SummerSlam. There was no possible way that when we get to SummerSlam, Gunther is not walking out of Cleveland without the World Heavyweight Championship. And this is the factor that I think a lot of people are kind of bypassing. He won King of the Ring. He's in the main event. It never made sense for Drew McIntyre to win the championship. And if you had McIntyre win the title, where exactly was he going with it? He'd go into Money in the Bank and potentially lose it. He'd go into SummerSlam and potentially lose it. Why give him a 1 or 2 month reign so people then complain, oh, his reign was shit? Well, he never should have had a reign to begin with. Plus, you do that, where's Punk and McIntyre fitting on the SummerSlam card? A lot of this didn't really add up to people, and I tried to explain this to people, and a lot of people were like, oh, it's still a shit ending. I would have, crowned him, and, Triple H doesn't really live in the moment. But it was never supposed to be a moment. Like, I honestly stand, and I know you've been critical of Paul Levesque. I've been more pro Paul Levesque than a lot of people, but I could see where his faults are. I admit that, but this was not a fault of his. This was perfect booking.
Yeah, and I think it became more clear where they were going with it when we saw Seth Rollins walk out on Raw last night, and all of a sudden, and nobody was talking about Seth Rollins before last night.
Surprising.
It was a genuine surprise. I didn't see it get leaked anywhere. Nobody had him even penciled into the SummerSlam card, let alone Money in the Bank. And now here he is being, gifted essentially a World Heavyweight Championship match with Damian Priest. And it seems pretty clear to me, and we're still a few weeks out, but the match for SummerSlam is likely going to be Seth Rollins against Gunther and not Damian Priest against Gunther. And I think all the people who were complaining about that not being a marquee enough match should be happy, because I think that's how this is all going to turn out. And so if that's the case, again, it kind of plays back into the Drew McIntyre stuff. Let's say he wins the world title on Saturday, which I thought there was a chance of that happening, and I had him winning as my prediction, but I also said he's not walking into SummerSlam as the world heavyweight champion. So if it doesn't happen in Scotland, Punk is going to find a way to screw this guy over in Toronto next month. Pick your poison. You either do it Saturday or you wait 3 weeks and it happens there. But I didn't see him going in as the champion. That's a match that doesn't even need the title. And now we also see what the longer term vision was here with Rollins coming back and how he may factor into the world title picture now. So, again, I can understand in certain situations when you feel like everything is just, the stars are aligned and everything is set perfectly, and he's in his homeland, and everybody, the entrance when he came out on Saturday, it was deafening, in that building. It was an electric entrance, and I'm sure they would have blown the roof off the Hydro on Saturday had he won that world title. But again, this is a story that's been playing out now for months. The troll got trolled.
Yes.
That's the story. Drew McIntyre has been trolling this man ever since he got hurt. and had to miss WrestleMania. And so Punk, even though he screwed him out of the world title at WrestleMania, and it it's to the point now where it's almost like piling on, but the troll got trolled. And this had to happen for them to get to the next leg of the story, which is what we saw with Drew McIntyre on Raw last night.
Yeah, I agree with all that. McIntyre and Punk, like you said before, doesn't need the championship. The troll got trolled. Punk has stated, even at the post-show scrum after the show was over on Saturday, that he's going to do whatever he can. So where Drew McIntyre never sees that world championship. So it's now reached levels where it's turning into a blood feud.
You know what it reminds me of? I mean, what you just said, what that reminds me of, the parallels are very similar with Swerve and Hangman in AEW. Where Swerve is now, he's completely obsessed, and we may talk about him because he's going to be on his way back soon. He is completely obsessed with making sure that Swerve Strickland does not become AEW World Champion. Well, then he did, and you have to think that when he comes back, he's going to want to do everything in his power to take that title away from him. But, he was a babyface, and he lost to Swerve a couple of times. They had that death match last year. And he just started to slowly lose his mind. This guy was living rent-free in his head. And it's a very similar story here. You can draw parallels between the two. It's a personal blood feud. Now, in that case, the World Heavyweight Championship may be up for grabs. It doesn't have to be here to play this thing out. And I just think people, they get wrapped up in their emotions in situations like this and in the moment. Again, if you were in the building... Now, I saw the fan footage of people booing and chanting bullshit when the show was over, and I can understand those people being upset. But if you couldn't see where this was going, then I'm sorry, you haven't been paying attention to the last several weeks of television. That should not have been a shock to anybody watching that show.
Now, I was very adamant about another aspect of this, and WWE has a very easy road if they want to go and do this. And I don't know if they are going to do it, but I would actually be very curious to see what they could do if they do potentially do a double turn. Do you see a double turn happening here? I don't know what you talked about on your end, but McIntyre coming out of Scotland and McIntyre quitting last night on Monday Night Raw, you could really look at that as him being, on the sympathetic side of things and people siding with him. It's been, how many times that he's gone after the world championship. He lost to Roman Reigns at Clash of the Castle, the first one, in the manner that he did. He lost to Damian Priest with Punk screwing him over. He was going into his home country. He lost. WrestleMania, he got fucked over there. Is it a potential where Triple H now does a double turn? Because I think you and I both agree that Punk is a much better heel than he is a babyface. And McIntyre now being a sympathetic, figure here, does he get cheered, and is this the start of CM Punk's villain arc here going into SummerSlam?
It could be, and I did float that as an idea. I don't think it's likely, but I think if they wanted to pull off, kind of the slow double turn, it does feel now like Punk is almost piling on to where I almost feel sorry now for the guy. And so if they continue down that road, I mean, Punk has proven that he's certainly very good at going out there and getting a reaction from people and pissing them off. So him being a heel, it's like waking up in the morning and breathing. Like, it would be very easy for him. They could do that. I look ahead, and I think that when the time finally comes, Drew McIntyre will be the world champion at some point. I think he's going to be a babyface, though. Now, that doesn't mean there's going to be a double turn here in this feud, but I think when he finally does win that title back, whether it's the world or the WWE title, I think he'll be a babyface. So the potential is there. If they want to play this thing out in these next few months and they want to slowly, flip these two from side to side, they could do it. And that's kind of the beauty of the way they've set this up now. There's a few different ways they can go with this. And I think absolutely that could work if that was one direction that they wanted to go in. I don't feel like that's what they're going for, though. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think that's where we're headed with this.
So looking ahead to, I want to stay on the Punk and McIntyre situation. We'll kind of cycle back to Damian Priest because I do have a question about Damian Priest here as well going into Money in the Bank. With SummerSlam now. Yeah.
And before you go on, you made a comment before. You said that there's no way that Gunther does not walk out of SummerSlam as the World Heavyweight Champion.
No, without the World Heavyweight Championship.
Without it.
Yes.
There is a way. Well, we could talk about that.
I'm very curious about that because I got him
Yeah.
pegged 1,000% walking out of Cleveland with the World Championship. But
I think the overwhelming odds are in favor of it, and I think that'll happen too. But
please don't tell me Jey Uso cashes in on him. Please don't tell me you're thinking that.
No.
Okay,
No,
thank God.
that's not the direction I was going. Actually, the direction that I'm thinking of, as unlikely as it sounds, I think is something that you would be happy with and not upset with.
Well, looking at SummerSlam potentially right now with this current direction that we're heading in, we're looking at Cody versus Randy potentially. It's not really confirmed yet. We don't know what Cody's going to be doing at Money in the Bank. We are all assuming it's going to be a 6-man tag team match. I think that's the best thing for him right now. I heard some rumors going around that Cody will be defending against Kevin Owens at Money in the Bank. I don't want to see that yet. I would rather a 6-man tag team
but
match.
what sense would that make, though? I mean,
No.
to me, it's one of two things. The 6-man tag, I think you do that at Money in the Bank. You could do that on TV and then end up doing Cody and Solo for the title at Money in the Bank. But honestly, I'm with you. I mean, I would rather see them do the 6-man tag. I think it actually works better that way. And nobody is going to buy into the idea of Solo winning the title. So to me, it would be a waste. I'd rather see them do the 6-man at Money in the Bank.
Just to give you guys a grander picture of how big SummerSlam is looking, Cody versus Randy potentially, Drew McIntyre versus CM Punk is probably the likely destination for their first match. Seth Rollins potentially, I do think he's going to beat Damian Priest as well. We'll talk about that in a second. Rollins versus Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship. And obviously, you got the shadow of Roman Reigns potentially coming back. Who knows where Jacob Fatu is going to show up? It's going to be a huge night. That's a 3-headed beast right there for a triple main event that'll sell out. I don't know if SummerSlam's on its way to selling out or if it's sold out already. But, I mean, if that building's not sold out with those three matches, I'd be shocked.
Pretty close. I think they have it blocked off. I want to say maybe 54,000, and I think they have somewhere in the 47 or 48 range sold right now. Yeah.
SummerSlam's looking big. That's where we're going with this. Staying on the Punk and McIntyre stuff, Jason, we have the first match happening at SummerSlam. Now, the rumor is, WrestleVotes reported yesterday that Punk is not going to be cleared until the end of July, which would give him enough time to build, because his microphone skills are more than enough to sell a feud with Drew McIntyre. It's already at a point where we should be seeing a match, and enough has been said and done. But the first match will be taking place at SummerSlam. He's not going to be cleared until the end of July, but he is showing up to give us a diagnosis or an update this coming Friday in Chicago. Now, I know he's a Raw superstar. This is a Raw guy going to SmackDown, but it is in Chicago, so I'll give it a pass because I've been very hard on them breaking their own rules for the brand split, but I'll let this one slide. McIntyre quit on Monday. Do we see McIntyre now, not an active roster member per se, quote unquote, show up on the other brand and then fuck CM Punk up?
100%. I mean, if he doesn't, I don't know what we're doing here. And I actually laid out, now I don't know that they'll do this, but I kind of wish they would. And it doesn't even matter if McIntyre is officially a member of the roster or not. Even before they did the angle last night, I said, CM Punk asked for time off so he could skip Raw last night because he wanted to go home to Chicago. He wanted to see his doctor, get an update, and try to get cleared. He said, we're in Chicago on Friday. I will be there, and I will hopefully have good news to share. And I look at that, and I just say, this is perfect. This is perfect to do it like this, where you have Punk show up on SmackDown. He's got some news to share, right? He's in a good mood. So you can kind of get a sense of what he's about to tell us, which is that he's been medically cleared. Now, I know we haven't seen her on television since Punk came back to the company, but they're in Chicago. He's got some good news to share. And I would love it if we had AJ Lee in the crowd, like right there in the front row. And he looks over and he points her out. And he says, April, my bride, I couldn't have gotten through this injury without her. She's my rock. She's always been there for me every step of the way. And really laying it on. And that's when you have Drew McIntyre come out and just savage this man. And he leaves him destroyed. AJ is in the she's beside herself. She's all emotional, like Samantha Irvin in the angle with Ricochet. And you can even have McIntyre then sit down, cross-legged in the ring and then cut his own little pipe bomb on Punk as he's laid out in the ring. Eye for an eye. He screwed this man over in his home country. What better way for him to get revenge than to kill him in his hometown in front of his wife? And that way, if Punk is not medically cleared officially yet, That gets him off TV for a few more weeks. There's no need for him to wrestle anyway before SummerSlam. SummerSlam should be his first match back. So now he's off television for several weeks. He can come back just in time to promote the SummerSlam match, and then boom, you got your first match and this huge personal issue between these two. It's perfect. Like, it's the perfect setup, and I would love to see them do that on Friday night.
It almost makes too much sense not to do that. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't understand. Like Scotland, he was there. Punk screwed him over in Scotland. Now McIntyre's in Chicago, and McIntyre gets right back at Punk in Chicago. It just makes perfect sense to do that.
Yeah.
So hopefully,
At the moment that Punk is ready to share this great news, and he never gets it out. Like, he never gets to make the announcement because McIntyre gets to him before he can say anything. But it's just perfect. You know, what should be this great high moment for Punk is taken away from him by this man who has nothing left to lose in his mind, right? He's had everything taken away from him. So what's he got to lose?
you know what I said last night? I'm like, oh shit, WWE. I know things did not align. The stars were not aligned for this to be, taken to the next level. But well, we all know how Drew McIntyre's contract status was very well documented and publicized, and The Rock handed him a sword and a letter.
A fucking sword. He gave him a sword.
Out to dinner with his family. He got the contract news out in public. And imagine if WWE didn't publicize that and they waited and nobody knew and everybody was like, this guy's still a free agent. Nobody knows his contract status. And then he quits last night. Imagine what the reaction would be if he didn't sign a new contract. If we didn't know he signed a new contract, then he quit on Monday Night Raw.
1 week after they did that angle with Ricochet, when people know that he is leaving legitimately.
Yeah.
That would have been, so yeah, now you would have had people thinking, holy shit, they're losing Ricochet and McIntyre back to back.
It's just little things that I look back on that. I said that last night. I'm like, fuck.
You look at the night Chad Gable had last night, you would think he was on his way out and he didn't re-sign with the company.
It looks like he got glocked by Arn Anderson last night with the way he was laid out.
You know what? I saw that, but first thought in my head is like, he's been bullying the Alpha Academy around for so long that they finally had enough, and Maxine put a fucking bullet in his head and just said, "The hell with that." So I was like laughing. Oh man!
I know people are going to be throwing around the word buried for Chad Gable. We'll get to him in a little bit, but sticking on to the Punk and McIntyre situation, I do love that. I think that's the right way to go if they want to do that in Chicago. The other news regarding this, which should also kind of give people a clearer idea as to where they're going. And I know not everybody's on the dirt sheets and you don't read the sites and all that shit, but PW Insider Elite has a story behind their paywall that says that it is a high possibility that we see, Jason, Bad Blood return to October as the October pay-per-view for WWE on October 5th, which would be the 27th anniversary of the first ever Hell in a Cell match between The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. The fabled night where we saw the debut of Kane as he rips the steel door off its hinges and he has that epic stare down with The Undertaker. I am more pro Mick Foley Undertaker, but the better match overall was definitely that first Hell in a Cell. But now you see where we could potentially be going with this. Match number 1 at SummerSlam. Second match in September, whatever the pay-per-view is in September, and then...
No, not even September. You do it at Bash in Berlin.
Or that. Absolutely. Or Bash in Berlin. And then we get to Bad Blood and we get the third and final match inside Hell in a Cell. I think with the way that we're going, we could actually find this feud to warrant a Hell in a Cell, which has been a problem for WWE in the past.
By that point, this feud will have been going on for 10 months.
Yeah.
If they extended that far. I would say that that's an appropriate blow off to me inside Hell in a Cell. If you look at what the potential top feuds will be at that point in WWE. I mean, October is still a few months away. I don't know that you're going to find a more, intense rivalry anywhere in the company on either roster than McIntyre and Punk. And if that's going to be the third match, Hell in a Cell is the perfect place, I think, to blow it off.
I think so. A lot of people kind of didn't really want to acknowledge that this week with all the hysteria coming out of the main event of Clash of the Castle, and that news dropped the same week. Nobody really put the pieces together, but I see where they're potentially going. I like it, and that coming back, looking back at the Clash main event, makes all the sense in the world why Triple H booked the main event at Clash the way that he did.
Yeah, and again, you're looking at two guys that WWE has a lot invested in. They just re-signed Drew McIntyre only a few months ago to what I'm sure is a very lucrative deal, very lucrative long-term deal. Him and CM Punk are two of the biggest stars in the entire company. Punk's been out for many months, but you don't think that Triple H and the creative team don't have a solid plan for CM Punk for when he comes back? A solid plan for Drew McIntyre that's going to take them into the summer and into the fall? I mean, those two guys right there are outside of Cody and Roman, I mean, two of the top priorities in this company. So I'm sure that they have things mapped out for these next several months for those two. You could find other members of the roster where I look and I go, man, I don't know. I hope they have a good plan for this guy or that guy. Drew McIntyre and CM Punk are not two people that I am worried about them not having plans for.
No, absolutely not. And I'm thinking while I'm listening to you speak, what one Future Shock DDT did to us here, because imagine if Punk didn't get injured and he wrestled Rollins at WrestleMania, where we would be right now. I don't even know if we would be in the position that we're in now if Punk remained healthy from the Royal Rumble on. Where the fuck would we be?
Well, I mean, where would we be right now if, Rock had not tried to force his way into the WrestleMania main event? Look at what that led to. And now we're heading into next year and potentially a match for Rock that none of us would have been talking about, 6 months ago.
No.
So it's funny how sometimes that one thing, that one storyline twist or that one injury can change everything. And just, you think you're going to go this way and it just takes you sometimes in a better direction. That doesn't always work out that way, but WWE's been very fortunate this year in that regard, that whenever they get bad news, they seem to be able to pivot in a direction that may end up being better than what they originally had planned.
Yeah, this is going to be probably the best feud that WWE does all year, especially on Monday Night Raw. Going back to Damian Priest, we got the match. Seth Rollins showed up on Monday Night Raw last night, and it was a surprise to me. I'm sure it was a surprise to you. I didn't really expect him back until the end of the year, honestly. He shows up. It's a shot in the arm that the WWE in general needs, because they were without McIntyre, who was suffering from a hyperextended elbow. Punk's been out with his injury. Rhea Ripley's out. Becky's not under contract right now. Asuka's out. Cody is feuding with God knows who on SmackDown. We got AJ out of the way. We got Logan Paul. We don't really have a clear direction for him yet. Hopefully now we do. SmackDown's been lacking lately. So with Rollins coming back, were you surprised when you saw Rollins back that we got him back so soon? And then you start putting the pieces together and why he's back. You mentioned that Rollins potentially winning the title from Damian Priest at Money in the Bank. I could see that happen. I said that last night as well. But going into SummerSlam with him and Gunther, I think everybody sees Gunther winning the World Championship. But with Rollins back now, what does that mean for Damian Priest? How does he lose that championship if that's the direction that we're going? And I said this last week, and I think you said Jey Uso potentially winning Money in the Bank. I'm going with Finn Balor. Do we now open up the door for Finn Balor to win the Money in the Bank? And is Triple H going to use the Money in the Bank contract to build the split of Judgment Day? And is that the way Damian Priest loses the championship at Money in the Bank?
So you're assuming there's going to be some kind of last chance qualifier, because Balor lost last night.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that he'll end up in Money in the Bank. But I do think that if he loses the title at that show, the Judgment Day will factor into that in some way. There's been too many teases dropped now for months, little hints here and there, even last night, in these backstage segments of, a little bit of dissension between Balor and Priest, or Priest will make a comment and Balor will look at him a certain way. Now, Balor even flat out said to him last night, I don't like the way that you're, accusing me, or whatever line he used. I think the Judgment Day, when he loses that title, will play a role, whether it's inadvertent, whether it's something intentional. I think they have to play a role, because I think when Priest loses the title, I mean, wouldn't you think the direction would be Priest and Balor?
I am predicting that takes place at SummerSlam.
Yeah, I mean, that would seem to be especially if Priest is no longer the champion, and you're like, okay, well, what is he going to be doing on that show? Him against Finn Balor is the match that makes the most sense to me. Yeah.
I think that's the direction that we're going. Rollins, how do we feel about Rollins potentially holding the championship from Money in the Bank and then dropping it at SummerSlam? Is that, I don't know what the right word is. Is that Is that the right creative decision? Is that feasible? Is that something that is going to be the fans look at as good creative?
I don't see why it's not feasible. I mean, he was the first man to hold that title, and he had that title for almost a year. So if he was to win the championship back and then drop it a month later, I personally don't have an issue with it. I mean, what are we expecting here? He's going to win it back and hold it for another 6 months, 9 months? I mean, honestly, his run, I mean, he had some great matches during that run, but after a while, it just gets boring. And sometimes you got to shake things up, and not everybody is going to have a lengthy run with the title. He had a pretty lengthy run. If he holds it for a month and drops it to Gunther, I have no issue with that, because Gunther is more than ready, I think, to assume the position as a world champion in this company. He's been ready for a while. Anything else would be beneath him at this point. It's to the point now where they don't even have anything for him until we get to SummerSlam. We haven't even seen him on TV. No. I mean, there were people saying that he was one of the bodies last night at the end of the show, and I thought there was somebody that looked like him, but I don't think, I think people were seeing things that weren't really there. I've seen so many names thrown out as far as that goes. I mean, we could talk about that, but he hasn't been on television lately because they're just waiting until SummerSlam. He doesn't win the title at SummerSlam. What do you do with him? I'm not even sure creatively. Yeah, I don't even know creatively where else you go with him. If either SummerSlam or in Berlin, he is not holding that World Heavyweight Championship. It just seems preordained at this point. And Rollins is somebody that they have used in situations before. It's like, hey, we can rely on Seth. We need you to do this. We need you to face this guy. We need you to lose to this person. And he's the consummate team player, so, you know, he'll go along with whatever they want him to do. I'd rather see Gunther hold it than Seth Rollins. For me, with him, it's been there, done that. I don't need another 6 months of Seth Rollins as the World Heavyweight Champion.
A little timeout here. I want to get to 2 super chats while Jason, your camera just went gray. I don't know why.
Went gray.
It went gray. I'll get to Dwayne Jackson here, who we got 2 $100 super chats from Dwayne Jackson. Dwayne says, with all the old AEW pay-per-views accessible on Triller for a price, and AEW trying to get a new TV deal and possibly streaming deal, what happens then? Is AEW pay-per-view on Triller defeating the purpose for a price if things are to be bundled with their new TV deal anyway? Dwayne, I will save that for when Jason gets back. Apparently something happened with his camera. We're having just a minor problem there. I don't know what happened. StreamYard's been acting up.
Let me just tinker with this. I just may have to reload it.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll get back to that question in a second. Also, Dwayne with the $100 super chat, he says, with this TNT tournament ongoing, where's Miro, Lance Archer, Jay White, Daniel Garcia, etc.? To me, this tournament just gives Jack Perry the title. In my opinion, it's a poor excuse for a tournament. This tournament was thrown together and not planned or thought out. Dwayne, Jack Perry is going to Forbidden Door. He's already qualified. He beat Dustin Rhodes in the qualifying match this past Wednesday on Dynamite. He will be going to Long Island, and he will be in that ladder match. He's going to win that ladder match, and he will be the new TNT champion. How well that comes off, I don't really know. And we'll get to some AEW discussion a little bit later on in the show, because we do have a note on Adam Page. We will talk blood and guts. We also have the Undertaker's comments on what he said on Tony Khan leading the company. So we will get into all that in just a little bit. But I thank you guys for joining us here. And Midmost, Mark, what version of StreamYard are you using? I don't know. I didn't know. Listen, man, I don't use StreamYard. I only use StreamYard on Tuesdays with Jason. So if there is an update, I will have to update it. I don't know. But I thank you guys for being here on Tuesday night. And we have 2,600 in here right now. Almost 700 likes. Thank you guys very much for all the support. 2594 right now in the chat. So thank you guys for that. We are working. Oh, there he is.
There I am.
He's back. All right. See?
There you go.
All
you
good.
know what happens, man, when it's this hot, things go haywire.
I know. I've had cameras overheat, man. I've had cameras fluctuate on and off on their own in the heat. I get it.
Oh, man. Lovely. And we're not even officially in summertime yet. right?
No.
Isn't it at the end of this week?
Yes, and we're going to increment up all week. It's going to be towards 90 degrees, upwards towards 90 degrees later this week.
Oh, lovely. I can't wait for that. That's
Yeah.
going to be fun.
Yeah, man. I hate the summer. I love the summer and hate the summer at the same time. I'm much more of a fall guy, but that's just me. I don't know. Where were we? What were we talking about? I don't even remember anymore.
We were talking about Seth Rollins.
Seth Rollins, that's right. Him and Gunther at SummerSlam is right now what everybody's predicting, and I think that is the right way to go. You were talking about him winning the title only to drop it to Gunther, and we were talking about what does Gunther do after that. There is no plan for him. That's why he is going to be the World Heavyweight Champion. But my question to you is, Jason, to follow up on that, you know, a lot of people are like, well, Gunther's going to win the championship, and he's going to be a boring champion. I don't really listen to those people because putting boring and Gunther in the same sentence doesn't compute with me. But I will say, are you worried about Gunther becoming the world champion and then being the second most important thing on the show underneath CM Punk and Drew McIntyre? Is that a concern to you?
No, I don't think so. I think because, you know, if he becomes champion in August, you know, we're looking at the Punk and McIntyre thing being blown off by October. If anything, it would be a temporary thing. And it's understandable because that is a program and a feud that will have been going on for months. And Gunther will only be at the beginning of his reign as World Heavyweight Champion. So even in the first month or two, if it feels like that he's playing second fiddle, and he may not, but if he is, it's temporary. It's temporary. Just so they can play out the string and get that feud, you know, let's say blown off in Hell in a Cell. I'm not worried at all. I think that what WWE and how Triple H have used Gunther so far, all throughout his Intercontinental title run and winning King of the Ring and, you know, now likely on the verge of becoming World Heavyweight Champion. With him, I feel like that they have earned our trust, you know, that we know that they are going to do right by him. They've done that right up until this very day, from the moment he debuted on that main roster. He's one of the few that I'm not worried about.
I hope you're right, and I agree with you with this administration. We all know Triple H loves Gunther. I trust him completely. If this was the other way around, and in the old administration, he'd probably be fired by now. But I do trust Triple H with him, and if his IC title reign was anything, his world title run is going to be just as good. We did talk about Rollins. We talked about Priest. We talked about Punk and McIntyre. Let's move over to one of our personal favorites here, you and I, Chad Gable. Chad Gable wrestled Sami Zayn at the pay-per-view on Saturday, and he failed at capturing the Intercontinental Championship. And it was what I described as a half of a turn for Otis. And I guess him just completely dumping Chad Gable. Him walking out with Maxine, I thought was a half of what we really needed it to be. Though I actually said I would have loved to see it happen a week or 2 weeks before we actually got to the pay-per-view. They were maybe saving it for the pay-per-view, but we did not get it fully, Jason. Then we get to Monday, and I see a lot of people murmuring online, is that it? Is that all we got? That felt so anticlimactic. I expected more out of Otis turning on Chad Gable and leaving the Alpha Academy. Did you feel that way at all coming out of Saturday, going into Monday, with Otis leaving the Alpha Academy, or did you want to see more, or Otis attack and brutalize Chad Gable, which honestly is not really a part of his DNA or his character on Monday Night Raw?
No, I wasn't expecting him to savagely beat this man down. I was hoping we would get something on Saturday, just because I feel like in front of that crowd, it would have been just an amazing reaction. And even last night, it got a reaction, and I still feel like it was muted compared to what it would have been like almost anywhere else.
Well,
So
you know where they were last night, though.
I do. And I will say it was not their worst performance.
No.
Believe me, I have seen shows that are far worse from, as I call it, Corpus Christi. So they were a little bit better last night. But of all the places, I mean, to do that, let's say in Scotland, if you would have shoved him down or done something, you know, punched him or something, the reaction would have been fantastic. So that was really my only disappointment with that match, because I thought the match itself was excellent on Saturday. No surprise, you know, between Sammy and Chad. And then even what we got last night, it still didn't feel to me like we were totally there yet. You know, this was the next step in the eventual split of the Alpha Academy, and Otis finally put his hands on Chad Gable, and it got a big reaction. But even still, like, there's still more to tell, as we saw from the backstage segment later when, Gable came in, hey, what are you guys doing? And Otis said, we're leaving. And they all walked out. And I actually think, the way things played out with how we saw Gable at the end of the show last night, I think is going to come back around to where maybe he plays that up for sympathy and guilt and tries to guilt the Alpha Academy kind of back in his good graces, because, hey, if you guys didn't walk out on me and abandon me, that may not have happened to me, and then maybe they come around and they apologize to him. So again, this is going to continue to play out, I think, for a few more weeks. And it's been one of the best stories going on Raw now for the past few months, but at some point you don't want it to go for too long. And I know both of us have talked about the Creed brothers and how they're going to eventually factor into this, hopefully, and, go heel, and we'll get something with them and Gable. I just hope that they don't drag this out so long that when we finally get the payoff or we finally get the next step in this story, people aren't indifferent towards it, like, that should have happened 3 weeks ago, or that should have happened a month ago. Because you don't want to go too long with these things.
I totally agree, and that was another talking point from a few different places on social media that I saw scrolling last night. Triple H takes a little bit too long to finish up a story, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but I feel like you are correct. It cannot go too long, and I'm wondering where we do go now, because after last night, I should say Sami Zayn is done with Gable, and Gable is not really factoring into the Intercontinental title picture, as we saw Sami Zayn get into it with Braun Breakker, and then Sheamus comes out. We spoke about those two guys last week and some potential long-term creative there with those two guys, and then Ludwig Kaiser comes up and is continuing his feud with Sheamus.
Yeah, before we even get to that, can we just take a moment here to acknowledge how bad of a day Chad Gable had yesterday? So he lost on Saturday. Okay, he failed for the 5th time to win the Intercontinental Championship. He shows up to Raw last night and he loses a match. He loses to Braun Strowman in like 2 minutes too. He basically got squashed. So he lost his match. He lost his family. And then at the end of the night, he lost his life. It doesn't get any worse than that. I mean, I can't think, as I think back to in the history of bad days, that's pretty bad. Chad Gable last night, I feel sorry for the guy, although he was all over the show. If you want to look at it a different way, he was in 4 different segments on the show. So the one thing you can't say is that Triple H is not featuring him on the show.
He absolutely is featured. We'll get to what he said about Triple H in a second, but with that said, he did lose to Braun Strowman last night. Now I don't know how he's going to show up next week after he was murdered last night, but he has a Money in the Bank qualifying match next week against Braun Strowman and Bronson Reed. I will ask this first before we get into the further discussion of Chad Gable. Does he win next week, and does he qualify for Money in the Bank?
I think he does. He does.
That completely eliminates him from any future right now anyway. IC title picture.
Oh, I thought that was apparent after last night.
Are you disappointed by that? Because
of course I am.
I know that I am, because what story are they telling here? Obviously, we mentioned the Creeds. Are we going Creeds and the new Alpha Academy versus the old Alpha Academy?
Well, so they have been building this now for months, where he has been trying, going back to last year, where he has been trying to win this title. And I always thought he's got to win it at some point. This is when he was still a babyface. Then they turned him heel. And I said, well, he's got to be winning this title, right? Surely he's going to win the title now. And here we are 2 months later, and it looks like they are moving on. And the last sight while he was alive last night, the last sight of him was him saying, I'm going to win Money in the Bank, and I'm going to prove, I'm going to win the World Heavyweight Championship. And that would be great, of course, if that were to happen. I don't know how realistic that is. But I was disappointed. I was left disappointed, but I also was left wondering if there's still a way in for him. I think he does qualify for Money in the Bank if he wins the briefcase. Because I know Jey Uso was before I knew what other names may or may not be in this ladder match. Jey Uso, I think, and maybe he still is the favorite going into Money in the Bank. if Gable wins, there is a precedent here for someone cashing in on something other than the World Heavyweight Championship. Austin Theory did it for the U.S. title. So one story they could tell is that, okay, Sami Zayn told him, dude, I'm done with you. Like, I'm moving on. Adam Pearce told him, back of the line. And then he got squashed again last night. There seems to be no hope whatsoever that he is going to get back in line for a shot at the Intercontinental title. Unless he wins Money in the Bank, and he is so obsessed with winning this championship that he will cash in not for the world title, but he will cash in for the Intercontinental title. Maybe even that night, depending on the match order. Again, they're in Canada. I thought going into Money in the Bank, what great heat if he would have beat Sammy there. And, clearly they didn't go in that direction. So there is a small chance that happens. But I want to go back to something I mentioned to you earlier when you said that there is no way that Gunther is going to come out of SummerSlam not the World Heavyweight Champion. Now, this is going to sound very far-fetched here, but I say that there's at least a small chance that he doesn't. And that would be if Chad Gable were to win Money in the Bank and cash in after Gunther wins the world title at SummerSlam on him to get revenge on him going back to what happened last year. And instead of the Intercontinental title, he beats Gunther and wins the World Heavyweight title. Now, that seems far-fetched probably to a lot of people, but there's a story there too, right? Where he gets revenge on the man who took everything away from him and embarrassed him in front of his little girl. That's what got this whole thing started last year. What a full circle thing. Almost a year later, when Gunther is standing there, the new World Heavyweight Champion, and when you least expect it, here comes Chad Gable to cash in, and he wins. Now, he wouldn't hold it for very long. He might even drop it back to him in Berlin, but that could be a moment for Chad too. Instead of the IC, he wins the world.
It's quite the interesting picture you painted there. I didn't really think of that, and
bring it back to that story.
Yeah, and the question is, we didn't really discuss what Gunther would be doing after SummerSlam when he, quote-unquote, won the World Heavyweight Championship, what his first feud would be. I mean, that's an easy in right there with Chad Gable. And then, I keep forgetting that we got Berlin at the end of August. I mean, that just makes a lot of sense as well to do that.
Because if you look at it, it's like, all right, if Gable were to do that, and he sneaks in and it's one of the most shocking Money in the Bank cash-ins, successful cash-ins of all time, now you're doing two heels, right? Because Gable's a heel, Gunther's a heel, but he ain't going to be a heel going into Berlin. So at least on that show, if he was to go in there as the babyface and win the belt back, it would kind of make sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting thought process here. It would almost be like their modern day version of Tuesday night in Texas, but not 5 days later. It would be at the end of the month. So
yeah, it would be 4 weeks later, and then of course they get right back to where they wanted to be, which is Gunther is the World Heavyweight Champion. But at least Gable gets something, because here's my issue with what they're doing with Chad Gable. And I'm glad that, Triple H is actually featuring him and he's in all these different segments on the show, because I think sometimes people don't realize that. They just kind of look at what they're doing with him. He's losing this match and losing that match. But then you take a step back and it's like, okay, the dude was in 4 segments on the show last night, including that big angle. He had his small part in that big angle at the end of the show. Like he's all over the place. And television time is very valuable. So if they're giving him all this television time, they're obviously they see something in him. But if he continues to lose, which is what he's been doing, he lost every opportunity he had to win that IC title. And not only did he lose last night, he got squashed like a nobody. At some point, that has to stop if you want him to have any credibility in the eyes of the fans. Because if he's going to eventually win a title, it doesn't even matter what title it is, all he's going to be is the jobber holding a title. And you don't want people to look at him like that. I don't want to look at him like that, because I know how good this guy is. But at some point, the losing has to stop. Does that stop? Let's say if they put the Creeds with him and now all of a sudden he's, he starts winning matches. I hope so, because you can't just keep beating this guy over and over and over again. And then if he ever wins a title, it's like, well, what does it mean? It's almost like he drags the title down in a way, because you've conditioned people to think this guy's nothing more than a loser.
Yeah, he did say last night. I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, though, you mentioned the IC title. I mean, I don't think the fans would be open to that idea after the debacle that it was with Austin Theory cashing in on the United States Championship. But at least in this sense, it would make sense because Gable, like you said, is obsessed with being the Intercontinental Champion. He did say last night that he's going to win a world championship, something that Otis could never do. So I'm more and more.
Sami Zayn said the same thing, and we're still waiting on that.
Yeah, but the more that I think about it, the more it does add a nice sense of unpredictability to the Money in the Bank field. Jey Uso is a huge possibility. If there is a last chance qualifier and Balor gets in there, that plays into the Judgment Day story. Chad Gable's in there. We don't know who from SmackDown's going to advance to the Money in the Bank. So there's a lot of moving pieces that I like. Him cashing in on the IC title also, I don't really mind. I know it's a little far-fetched and outlandish to go after an IC title and not the World Championship when you're guaranteed one, but what one guy would do when you're obsessed with something. I mean, there are no boundaries.
Yeah, and again, him mentioning the world title, maybe it was just a way to throw off the scent.
Yeah.
But again, he's just so obsessed over the Intercontinental title. He worked so hard. It took him a year. He didn't win it. Whatever they're going to do with Sammy, maybe they're going to do Sammy and Braun Breakker. Which feels a little rushed to me.
Yes, I said the same thing.
Yeah, to have Breakker in that spot. And so instead of him beating Braun, I mean, again, it depends on the match order as far as when the Money in the Bank match is. And if Sammy has a match on the show, but that could be a way around that. If he cashes in during the match, like Rollins did at WrestleMania, and then he ends up, pinning Sammy, let's say, to win the match. It spares Braun being pinned, and then Gable sneaks out a win, and finally, he walks away with the Intercontinental title. So they have a few different options. I don't know, and this all depends on whether or not he qualifies next Monday. Now, they did announce the two men's matches, qualifying matches for SmackDown. It's going to be Kevin Owens, Andrade, and Grayson Waller in one, which would seem like a Kevin Owens win. And Randy Orton, Carmelo Hayes, and Tama Tonga is going to be the other one, which would seem like a Randy Orton win. But again, we were just talking about them maybe doing a 6-man tag on that show. So I'm not sure how that's going to work.
We may be getting some fuckery there. I think Carmelo Hayes advances because I can't see them leaving him out of Money in the Bank. And Andrade, I mean, I'm just what the fuck are they doing with him? Yeah,
he got the speed title.
Whatever, man.
Come on, man.
He needs to be.
Title.
He needs to be on the Money in the Bank show. I'm going with those two guys there. I think some fuckery happens with the Bloodline and Cody. So we'll see what happens on Friday. And that should be an interesting SmackDown. But going back to Chad Gable, one note here: he was interviewed by the Gorilla Position podcast over this past weekend, and he did talk about Triple H taking over, and he noticed a significant change immediately. He says, "Yes, I have," when he was asked if he signed a new contract. "I am staying with the WWE. What I'll say regarding Hunter, when he got started with us and took over, I think you saw my trajectory change almost immediately, even when I was in a tag team with Otis. I started getting singles matches with some of our top guys. To me, a light bulb went off. Things might be different now, and they have been ever since. He's delivered on everything he's ever told me." And we talked about this. Gable began receiving singles matches against top guys. He was on TV, and Jason said couple times already tonight, he's been featured consistently, and a lot of people don't really see the talent that Triple H is featuring consistently. They're always worried about how they're used, but not the fact that they are used consistently. So when they're used consistently, Triple H wants to put it in your head, at least from what we know watching NXT Black and Gold and what he did down there. The more you see them, the more you know them, the more you get to know and feel them out on television, the more they get over in front of the audience, and then he can strike and use them in a way where people know who they are at the right time. I like that, and Chad Gable noticed that immediately.
And I think it's very important. We see that in WWE. We see that in AEW a lot, where you'll have somebody who is on TV one week, and then we may not see them again for weeks.
Yeah,
and it's hard to get over, without consistently getting a spot on the show to go out there and to perform or cut promos and just let people know that you're there and that you are one of their featured stars. People can forget about you, or you are, you kind of get slotted at a certain level. People don't necessarily look at you the way they would look at an MJF, or they would look at somebody higher up on the card. You need consistent time on TV. That's one of the most important things. I think it's very difficult to get over if you're not going to be. It's like the start and stop push. We've talked about that over the years. And Dolph Ziggler is a great example of that. He was a victim of the start and stop push for so long in WWE, where, it felt like he was getting some momentum and he was getting a bit of a push, and then he wouldn't. It was like they kind of just stopped him in his tracks, or he wouldn't be on TV as much, and then he would be. You can't get over it like that. So consistency is very important, and it's good to hear him talk about that being part of Triple H's mentality when it comes to that stuff, because as he was saying, I guess the way Triple H looks at it, even if all you get is a minute or two on the show, it's about maximizing your minutes. Now you're still a slave to the creative. You still need good creative to hopefully help get yourself over here. Can only do so much if you have 60 seconds on TV. But giving people consistent spots on the show is what will help in the end, help them get over. That and creative.
Absolutely. And we're seeing it with Braun Breakker. And you see what has happened with him and the impact he has made since being drafted from NXT. And we're going to shift our discussion to that, because he's not only been some of the best parts of all of WWE television. To me, he's been the standout from the draft on Monday Night Raw in the absence of Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. And last night, Jason, he went face-to-face with Sami Zayn, and I was like, uh-oh, here we go. No Chad Gable, and they are possibly doing Braun Breakker and Sami Zayn, and that doesn't bode well for Sami Zayn and his IC title run. And then all of a sudden, after that, I love Braun Breaker's intensity, by the way. It's just he's a man of very little words, but it's very impactful, and the crowd pops for everything he does. It's great. But then out comes Sheamus, and we all know Sheamus's long history with the IC title. The only title he's not won in WWE. He's been chasing it for the last 5 years. Very well documented. He comes out, he gets in Braun Breaker's face. And then we get a match later on in the night between Breakker and Sheamus, which was very good. But it ended up winning, or Sheamus rather ended up winning that match by disqualification because of Ludwig Kaiser. Now he's thrown his name into that discussion as well. So we're looking at a potential four-way here with Kaiser, Sheamus, Breakker, and Sami Zayn. Now, I know you mentioned before, and I totally agree with you because I said the same thing last night. Giving Braun Breakker a shot at the IC title is okay, but having him win it, way too soon. I would not put the belt on him right now. I think there's a lot more he needs to do and could do before he gets to that point. Because I think when you're the IC champion, you're right underneath the world champion. I don't think he's at that level yet. But going into Money in the Bank, how do you see this playing out? Do we see a triple threat between these three guys? Do we get Kaiser involved? And do we potentially see, like you mentioned before, Chad Gable get involved in some way, shape, or form? Maybe this ends up being something where Gable kind of squeezes himself in there, and we get that happening at Money in the Bank in Toronto. What do you think?
It's just hard for me to envision how you get Gable in there. I mean, how do you justify it? Sami Zayn himself said, I'm moving on. Adam Pearce said, you got to go to the back of the line. It's not like they have to have even if they had a number one contenders match, they would be crowning one number one contender. I'm not so sure that Sheamus and Kaiser maybe don't even end up in Money in the Bank. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that they're going to be in some four-way match or triple threat or something for the Intercontinental title. I think Sammy and Breakker seemed to be the direction coming out of the show last night. They had that little stare down. I think Braun gave him a little bit of a shove. Sammy tried to get at him. So at the very least, we're going to get a singles match. Maybe it ends up being a multi-man match. I don't see how you get Chad Gable in there. I really don't. That's why I was talking about Money in the Bank. If people have any hope of seeing him challenging for that title anytime soon again, that's going to be the only way. Because how do you justify giving him another shot at that championship when you watched that television show last night and by all accounts, it just felt like we're moving on? How do you get back to that where it's like, okay, we'll give Gable another shot? He has to force it somehow. And short of the briefcase, I just don't know how he does that.
So if we go Breakker and Zayn, are we crowning Breakker as IC champion?
I think there's a chance. I don't want to say that it's a guaranteed thing. I don't think it's a guaranteed thing, but could I see Braun Breakker coming out of this as the Intercontinental champion, that they want to use Sami Zayn and a win over him, which would be huge. It would be the biggest win he's had so far on the main roster. Use that as a way to help get Breakker over to that next level. Yeah, because they see Braun Breakker as the future. Braun Breakker is going to be a future world champion. He's going to headline multiple WrestleManias. Like, people have been talking about this since he was still in NXT. This is not a big secret. Him holding the Intercontinental title, I'm okay with that, even though I still feel like it's a little too soon for that. But I wouldn't hate on it if they did it. I think that, he's been dominant so far. He could win that title and go on a tear, and have a dominant run for, however long they want him to hold on to it. Could be into WrestleMania next year. And then we get back to Breakker and Sheamus. Because what we saw from them last night, it was good, but it wasn't great. Yeah. And I know that those two have a great match in them. Sheamus has his own tale to tell about never winning the Intercontinental title. I could get behind Breakker getting a dominant run with that title and then rematching him and Sheamus at WrestleMania next year. And Sheamus wins the title off of him, and he finally wins the championship.
Yeah, I pitched that last week. I just had it the other way around. I said Sheamus goes into WrestleMania and Breakker beats Sheamus for the IC title. But, that could work as well, the way you laid it out. That potentially could be where they're going. I just feel like, personally, me looking at Sami Zayn's title run after beating Gunther 666 days, for the amount of work he's done in the title reign, it's been very good. I appreciate a great story, and that's what we've gotten with Chad Gable and Sami Zayn. But I feel like the reign that Zayn would have if he does drop it to Breakker this soon, coming out of Gunther's reign, would people be disappointed with the run that Sami had?
Considering the matches that he's had since WrestleMania, I wouldn't be disappointed. He's had some pretty good matches. Look, when he won the title, I wasn't expecting him to win that title at WrestleMania. Okay, very few people were. There were a lot of people who thought they knew there's no chance that Gunther is losing at WrestleMania, and guess what? He lost. I don't have an issue with it for this reason also. If Braun was to beat Sami, Braun has beaten Gunther before. So he's one of the, I guess him and Dragunov really would be the only other two men who can say that in WWE, it was NXT, but still, are the only men to have wins over Gunther in the company. So I think that gave him a nice credibility boost, back then when he beat him. But Sami could have had a longer run. Let's say he does lose it in a few weeks. Yeah, you could have maybe had him hold it until SummerSlam. But again, how long do you want him to hold on to that championship for? What's the end game if he doesn't drop it to someone either like a Chad Gable or a Braun Breakker? These stories they've been telling. What's the end game? How long would you have Sami Zayn holding on to this title for? It doesn't seem to me like he needs to hold on to it for an extended period of time. He's a made guy. He's going to be fine. It's just finding that right person. And if they feel like Braun Breakker is the right guy, then they're going to strap the rocket to him and they're going to push him to the moon. The Intercontinental title has traditionally been a stepping stone for other people. When I grew up and we had people like, Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart and Randy Savage, those guys went on to bigger and better things. They went on to become world champions. The title was always a stepping stone to something bigger. Rock, Austin, Jericho, all those guys. We know that Braun is headed in that direction. So him winning that title does make sense. We can quibble about the timeline of it. But if that's how they want to use it, they want to use that as a springboard to something bigger, right? They just did it with Gunther, right? We see where he's headed. I don't hate on that. I think that would be fine. But the run that Sami has had, I think it's been good. Could it have been a little bit longer and he could have had some more, banger matches during that run? Sure. But I've really enjoyed this Alpha Academy story, that he's been a part of, that they've been playing out now for the past couple of months. And he's gotten some pretty big wins on TV. So, Sami's going to be just fine.
Yeah, I agree. I like the way you laid that out. And it's funny because with Breakker and all this discussion about Braun Breakker being the next in line and management being incredibly high up on him, and if he wins the Intercontinental Championship, man, what a ready-made feud it would be if Ricochet ended up coming back to television and he ended up staying with the company. Now, I know a lot of people are wanting to see this happen. Braun Breakker laid out Ricochet a week ago in a Savage attack, which saw Ricochet slammed on top of a windshield of a car. But fans should not expect to see Ricochet back on television ahead of his impending departure as his contract is set to expire. Now, there was belief that he could come back, potentially maybe get one more match with Braun Breakker, but Ricochet gave his notice, leading to him dropping the Speed title, and he dropped that to Andrade, by the way. He was written off television, like I said, and PW Insider's reporting this week that the belief among sources that Ricochet, even though the possibility was there of him coming back, the belief is that he is done with the company. He won't be making any more appearances. He remains internally listed as part of the roster ahead of his expected departure in July when his deal is up. He has yet to publicly comment on this contract situation. Jason, is this potentially, I don't want to sit here and start booking Ricochet, with all the rumors and reports that he's headed to AEW, but could this be something that they are keeping heavily under wraps, and could we potentially see him back if Breakker wins the IC title? Because a ready-made feud like that doesn't come around all that often. It would be fucking poetic if it did happen and he comes back. Is this a red herring? Is this the company trying to dumb these rumors down and hide it the best they can? Or is he going to AEW?
He's going to AEW. That's a simple answer.
There you go.
That's it. I mean, I'm just giving it to you straight. I mean, he's going to AEW. And maybe other places too. He may not be exclusive to them, but I would be shocked if he doesn't go to AEW. And look, you just talked about what a great feud, what a great match it would be. Sure. But it's not going to end well for Ricochet. What do you think? He's going to beat Braun Breakker and win the Intercontinental Championship? Like, even if he did resign? No, of course not. Braun is the one that they're pushing. That's why they shot the angle they did last week. They're like, look, this guy's probably out of here. This is the guy that we're pushing. This guy is the future. Ricochet is the past. So let's use him to help get this guy over. That's why I thought it was a brilliant angle, the way that they did it last week. And Ricochet was the perfect person to, sell the attack the way he did. They've got him under contract legally, officially for a few more weeks. They talk about his contract being up in July. That could be the beginning of July. It could be July 1st. It could be the end of July. As long as they have him under contract, if they say, hey, we need you back, we need you to come back to work, then he's got to go back to work. I don't see the point. The angle they shot with him was just a classic write-off for somebody. That is how you send somebody away. He was taken away in an ambulance. There's nothing left to do with him. If he's made his decision to leave, but, we've got 2 weeks or 3 weeks that we can use him. All right, you get one match out of it. So what? You wrote this guy off with this brutal attack. Leave it alone. He's gone. He's done. I don't see this need to bring him back just to get one match out of it. I think it's better to just kind of leave it alone and just move on, because Ricochet seemingly has moved on, and just go your separate ways.
And we've talked about Ricochet and our thoughts on him leaving. That was on last week's episode. So if you guys want to go get our viewpoint on that, you guys know where to find that content. It's on the channel. I would love to see it. I know it's not likely that we will get it, but Ricochet and AEW, I'm sure Tony Khan's already drafting up a contract, though he did say, and I commend Tony Khan for being bright-headed here. I can't talk about anybody that's still on a contract with another company. No contract tampering. Good for him. I know he likes to jump the gun every now and then and be like, oh, he's a great talent, and I'd love to talk to Ricochet at some point. Yeah, he didn't say none of that, so good on him.
Well, because it's been done to him. He was
I know.
complaining a lot about contract tampering last year. He wasn't very happy about it. It would make him look like a giant hypocrite if he did it to them.
We'll get to AEW in a little bit, guys, but let's get into the Wyatt 6 or the Wyatt 5, but they are the Wyatt 6.
Well,
this is,
you know who the sixth one is?
The Spirit of Bray.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are like, oh, it's Alexa Bliss. It could be. Alexa Bliss could be leading the whole fucking group for all we know.
I'd kind of be surprised if at some point she doesn't get linked to this in some way.
Yeah.
But we had 5 people last night, and people were like, who's number 6? And it
Bray.
took me a while to realize it. I said, "Oh, it's Bray."
Yeah,
Bray is the number 6.
There you go. The Wyatt 6 have been the talk of the town since last night on Monday Night Raw. What an ending to Monday Night Raw it was. Uncle Howdy and his new group massacred many big names backstage during their debut, and it's I think a lot of people were claiming that it was one of the best debuts that they've ever seen. I'll stop there before I get into the Fightful report. Jason, where would you rank this as far as debuts that you've seen on WWE television, especially in recent memory? A lot of people were linking this to like the debut of The Undertaker when he first came out with, Ted DiBiase and the aura of the Undertaker? Is it going to be looked back at that level? And where do you put this in the whole Wyatt family lore?
Well, the easy answer is it's too early to tell. Where it will fall in the overall lore of the Wyatt family. Bray had that great return 2 years ago when he was gone for so long, and he came back at Extreme Rules, and that was a great moment, especially when you realize like him getting a second chance. Because him getting fired in the first place was a huge shock, and then it took so long for him to come back. I don't know that I would put this above that, just because I think that was more emotional. I think just knowing where he was and him making his big comeback. Plus, that was the first time they did the White Rabbit stuff, which was a huge hit, and this was an extension of that. They were trying to capitalize off the success they had with it the first time. So it's hard to replicate that same level of success when you try it again the second time. I saw the same thing you saw, people saying that, it was the best or one of the best debuts ever. I don't know where it ranks. It's not number one. I mean, it wasn't as good as the Nexus debut, from 2010. I could tell you that. I mean, that one was, I think, more well done. I think it had more of an impact and will end up having more of an impact than this will, as far as the overall roster and the overall company is concerned. Even though that could have gone on a lot longer than it did, and they burned that out. But this was very well done. It was very well shot. And I also made the comment last night when I talked about this, that I think, without knowing the man personally, but I think that if Bray Wyatt could see what happened last night, he would have a smile on his face.
Yes.
I think they did him proud. They took his vision. They brought it back to life. It was emotional watching it, because you heard that opening key, the piano key from Shatter. They didn't play the actual song, but they just kept repeating the same
and
key.
And it got louder as they made their way closer to ringside too.
Yeah, and it just over and over. It was just the one key for the entire time, and it just made it that much more creepy. And when they showed the backstage scene of just the massacre at the gorilla position, and I don't know if this was intentional or not, but I feel like, not that we never saw what the gorilla position looked like before, but I feel like in this Triple H era, I guess you would call it, we get a lot of shots back there.
Yeah.
We have these new camera shots now, for example, with Lee Fitting. He's the new director or executive producer, where they'll follow people, into the back, or they'll follow them from the back into Gorilla and then out into the arena. And I wonder if that was a conscious decision on their part to do it so often over the last few months, so that when we saw what we saw last night, it was more shocking. Because, we see that scene every week. We know who's back there. We know Triple H is back there. And then to see it in just disarray the way that it was very jarring. So I don't know if that was a conscious thing that they did or not. But, again, some people are not going to be into this sort of thing. And I will tell you, I'm a fan of horror movies. Horror and wrestling, even though I enjoy both, it doesn't mean that they always mix well. There are ways to do it, and there are ways to do it where it just comes off as very corny and completely unrealistic, and it just doesn't work. I can't say what it's going to look like in 3 weeks or in 3 months. I'm only judging it right now based on what we saw last night. I thought they hit a home run. As far as the presentation of it, the spookiness of it, the thing that struck me is we didn't see anybody get bludgeoned or murdered, right? We saw bodies everywhere. We saw blood splatter on the wall. You would think that somebody went around and just blew people away with a fucking shotgun. But we didn't actually see any of the violence. We saw the aftermath. So they left it to your imagination. Because I feel like that would have been very difficult to pull off in a believable way without people laughing.
Yeah.
If you see Eric Rowan with a giant mallet, bashing people in the head,
With
right?
a fucking rabbit mask on.
Yeah, with a fucking rabbit mask on. Like, it's a lot better to see the aftermath of it, and then you just leave it to your imagination. So I thought that was another, good way of doing it the way that they did. But just production wise, I thought they nailed it. They nailed the spirit of it. But what I was going to say is, what we saw there came off as a lot darker and more violent than I think anything they ever let Bray Wyatt do. I don't remember it being that dark.
Well, that's the one thing that they need to do, in my honest opinion. They need to differentiate this from what Bray did. Bray did a lot of the supernatural, hocus pocus, spooky stuff, and that never translated to the in-ring product. When Bray needed to finish telling a story, the conclusion would happen in the ring, and it never really got there, and it always fell flat. So what they did last night, I said this was a love letter to all the Bray Wyatt enthusiasts and Bray Wyatt himself. And if you're a fan of this universe, this lore that is Bray Wyatt, from Swamp Man Wyatt, Eater of Worlds, to the Fiend, the Firefly Funhouse, and what we're seeing now with Taylor, Bo Dallas, this is you're having a fucking field day with this. I know people have dissected this shit over the last 3 months. They've had a great time doing that, and I thought it was perfect. The visuals were great. Like you said, they left it up to the imagination, and it couldn't have been more perfect. Now, you did mention the Nexus. I did say leading up to this that I was hoping that we would get some sort of Nexus beatdown. I don't know what type of target, would be in their eyesight. I don't know who they would be starting their first program with, but I was thinking if we get a Nexus beatdown and kind of just take it to the next level with what the Wyatt family brings to the table, I think that would be a great way to close Monday Night Raw, rather. But we didn't go that route. And I don't want to say I wasn't disappointed, but I would have liked to see something along those lines. But what we got, I mean, I can't complain about it. I really can't. What they did was beautiful. And we knew instantly what was going on there. We had Eric Rowan wearing the rabbit mask. We had Joe Gacy wearing Huskus the Pig. We had Dexter Lumis wearing Mercy the Buzzard. We had Bo, obviously, as Uncle Howdy, and Nikki Cross. Shout out to Nikki Cross, and kudos to her. That was fucking creepy. When she started crawling through the smoke, I thought I was watching the fucking Ring. Man, I tell you, man, I watched The Ring. I don't know if you've seen the horror movie The Ring with the fucking creature coming through the TV.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, man, I can't watch that shit by myself in the dark, man.
Well, like the mask that she had on reminded me of Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So that's the first thing I thought of.
She just plays creepy so good, and we know her from Sanity, as what she did with them and what she did.
But
in
think
NXT.
about what we saw last night compared to Nikki ASH, which was I mean, and that was her idea at first, and Vince ran with it, and then they ran with it for far too long because they couldn't come up with something better for her to do. But just think of how far we've come, at least from what she was doing then. Like, talk about a 180 from that to what we saw last night. I'll take what we saw last night over whatever the fuck that was. But the other thing about this also is, again, there's going to be a lot of divided opinion about this whole thing, which is understandable, but I also think people need to keep perspective on it in this way. There were a lot of people who felt the same way about Bray Wyatt when he was doing the Fiend character and the Firefly Funhouse stuff. The thing about Bray and the Fiend, the company sold a shit ton of merch, and there were a lot of people who were very into that. I mean, you still to this day, you can buy those Alexa Bliss Lily dolls. Like, I was in Tampa for the Royal Rumble. They had the Royal Rumble store set up, and there were Lily dolls, all over the place.
I saw
that was in January.
I saw it at WrestleMania in Philadelphia. That Lily dolls at the shop.
Yeah. So they made a lot of money and continue, frankly, to make a lot of money off that stuff. There is an audience for it, I think, and it's a pretty broad audience too. I mean, it's kids, but it's also, again, people who are into horror, the horror genre. It does appeal to a lot of people. I mean, some people may be like, why, how? It's not wrestling. But, there is an appeal there, but then there's a problem. And the problem, and I'll tie it back to Bray Wyatt again in The Fiend. When Bray Wyatt debuted as The Fiend at SummerSlam in 2019, that was one of we were talking before about great debuts, right?
Yeah, that one.
I would put that debut and that entrance up there.
Yep.
Okay, that was incredible, from the music to the lantern with the stretched mouth and the mask and everything. It was great. And I was big into the Firefly Funhouse at the beginning just because it was just so unique. We hadn't seen anything like that before, and it was very creative and clever. And I tried to look at it in as realistic a way as possible. And the way I looked at it was, okay, this guy has had a psychotic break. Obviously he doesn't really, there's these puppets and stuff. These are all figments of his imagination. He should be in a padded room somewhere. I tried to apply some level of logic and realism to it as much as I could, even though they kept giving me reasons to just, quit on it. And then Hell in a Cell happened in 2019. But it was the law of diminishing returns. As cool as I thought it was at the beginning, at some point, he's got to get involved in storylines. And he's got to feud with people, and he's got to wrestle. And I don't know if I expected him to wrestle on The Mask, but he ended up wrestling in The Mask. It just didn't work. It just didn't work. After a while. Initially, it did. And then, of course, when he lost to Goldberg and all that, that's a whole other story. But as time went on, it became increasingly difficult, for people. If you were somebody who was feuding with Bray Wyatt as that character, you weren't coming out of that story better than you were going into it. So my concern here is, okay, week 1, presentation, top notch, A+, they hit a home run. And maybe they'll do the same in week 2 and week 3. I don't think we need them in week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's number one. I think this is going to be an act that is better left not appearing weekly on television, because it's going to get old real fast. So you need to use this as an attraction. You need to come up with a battle plan here where we get them on TV for select appearances, and maybe it's not the entire group, maybe it's only a couple of members at a time. Because I really do think if you start throwing them out there every week on TV, 6 weeks from now, a lot of people are going to be sick of this. So that's number one, but they have to wrestle. So what's that going to look like? Are they going to change the way they wrestle? Are they going to go in there and wear masks? They're going to take the masks off?
This was my concern, wrestling with the fucking masks on. Like,
Yeah,
Bo cannot wrestle with that mask on. I'm sorry. I said this last night. I want to see the man or the people under the mask. I don't think Joe Gacy's wrestling in that fucking Huskus mask. I don't think Dexter Loomis is wrestling in the Mercy mask. So I hope that's the case.
But Bo, I could see wrestling in the Howdy mask, though, because it was a
It's only
different
half his
mask.
face. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a different mask, and they kind of opened the mouth up a little bit. And I think maybe from their perspective, they want it that way because they feel like maybe if not, it'll kill the aura. Maybe they don't want people to look at him and go, oh, it's Bo Dallas. I don't know. I don't know if he's going to wrestle with the mask or not. I don't even know how often he's going to wrestle. When is the first time we'll see Uncle Howdy in a match? I don't know. Maybe we see the other members first. I get the impression that Joe Gacy is going to be the one that's going to have to carry the load as far as anything, in ring, like work rate wise is concerned. But how much of that is even important to this group? I don't know what this looks like from a practical perspective as time goes on and they have to feud with people and who they feud with. You got Braun Strowman on that roster. Conveniently, he wasn't there when the attack went down last night. He even tweeted about that. He's like, boy, it looks like a lot went down as I was chasing the Judgment Day out of the building. I don't know if that's a hint that he was in on it.
Jey Uso did the same thing. He's like, you guys want the Fireflies? Have them back. I don't give a shit.
Yeah. So I don't know who they work with first, and I don't know what that looks like. But my fear is that we're going to be sitting here talking about this in 3 or 4 months, and it's going to get old real fast unless they come up with a way to keep it special. And the track record with these types of gimmicks and these types of groups is not good. I look back at the Attitude Era, and you had the Oddities. Now, the Oddities were not, I wouldn't call them a dark faction. It was more like the Freak Show act. And they were over. They were over as a mid-card act for a while until they weren't. TNA's had a couple of stables like that over the years. They had one, the Menagerie.
Yep.
Crazy Steve, he was in the group. And I think Mike Knox was in the group. These were mid-card talents. And it worked for a little while until it didn't. Maybe that's their role. Ultimately, that's what they settle into on this show. Maybe it's kind of a middle of the card act. I look at this and who do we see? I mean, God bless them. You got some talent in there, but you got Dexter Loomis and you got Joe Gacy and you got Bo Dallas. These are not main event talents. And I don't know that they're going to turn Bo Dallas into one with this gimmick. So where do you want them to be? Like, where do we envision them being in 6 months or 9 months? I don't see this as a main event attraction on the show. You can keep doing spooky stuff like this, but for how long before that gets old, right? They got to get in the ring. You got to get actual stories that play out in matches. That's my concern here. I don't know what that looks like long term after, we get through these initial few weeks.
I said last night after the first impressions are everything. I'm always big on first impressions. Last night was the biggest first impression, most perfect first impression you could possibly ever have for this group. Next week, where the fuck are they going? It's like you're getting one movie out of a series of movies. You're getting the first movie out of a trilogy. Next week we go into Monday Night Raw. How are they going to top what they did this week? The fuck are they going to do? Are we going to get anything as far as management bringing it up? I mean, if I'm on Friday Night SmackDown, I'm Nick Aldis, and I'm bringing this to everybody's attention. I'm mentioning what happened on Monday night, and I'm saying
I'm having
the locker room
Yeah.
is not going to go the way we saw on Monday Night Raw. So I promise you, they're not going to be involved here. Are they going to be involved? I don't know, but we need some continuity here. Where do they go from Monday going into next week's Raw? That's my biggest concern. And like you said, Jason, I am very, very iffy on this having any longevity. I know Eric Rowan's in the group, and I said last night as well, Eric Rowan's a tag team specialist. He was in a tag team with Brody. They were the Bludgeon Brothers, not really the most successful tag team there, but he could be in a tag team with Dexter Lumis. We could see them a little bit humanized on television, get them on television, get them in the tag team division. Joe Gacy, like you said, could be a singles guy, while Bo is the puppeteer here, the puppet master. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the key. What I want to see out of this, okay, this first night, perfect. Going forward, I think it's important that we don't have all the hocus pocus. It's not, overly reliant on the supernatural elements. I want it to be as grounded in reality. I mean, it can only be grounded in reality so much, but as grounded in reality now as it can be. So we get to learn over time about these characters, why they are the way they are. I don't know how much talking they'll do, but I think it's important to keep it as grounded in reality as possible. And just what's their mission? Are they interested in championships? Do they want to be champion? Like the Fiend, he won the title from Seth Rollins, but then they had the issue of, okay, now he won the title, now what? So, is that important to them? Do we honestly, let's say Gunther becomes world heavyweight champion. What are we building to here? Are we building to Gunther against Uncle Howdy? That sounds like a ridiculous. I say it out loud. That sounds ridiculous. But
what brand are they on? Who's going to want to sign these fucking guys to their brand exclusively? Nobody.
Why would they be exclusive to Raw? Should we not see something similar on Friday?
Why would Adam Pearce want them in their locker room?
Are they going to respect the rules of the brand split? I mean, really, what are we talking about here? They should be showing up on SmackDown. That's right. We should see them on Friday. There's no reason that we shouldn't.
Now, WWE laid out, this is according to Fightful, what WWE laid out in terms of storytelling, the game plan is to have the Wyatt Six not involved in every program on Raw. So there is some sort of direction, and they're going to pick carefully, strategically, who they're going to be in a program with and who they're targeting. Like I said last night, like Jason just said today, what the fuck are you doing here? Why are you here? What do you want? What is your mission statement? However, who was attacked and who wasn't attacked was specifically laid out with intention, says Fightful. A post-match interview on Raw with Jey Uso, where he addressed the situation, he noted that he was freaked out by all of this, particularly the girl, and saying he'd gladly give them the Fireflies back. Uso managed to keep a good demeanor that he was when he was being interviewed, and he was concerned but also playful at the same time with everything that unfolded. Now, will the Wyatt Six have supernatural powers? This is something that's also been discussed. Fightful asked around about the upcoming stable and how it will play out on television. They're told that it's obviously been in the works for quite some time, and that WWE thinks there's a real chance this will work with modern wrestling. That remains to be seen, obviously. There were hints in Bray's documentary that they needed to do something that would make Bray proud. I think they accomplished that last night for now. In addition, a heavy talking point was that it was often difficult to make the Fiend and Wyatt programs work in the ring, which Jason and I just discussed. Sources in WWE spoke to, says Fightful, to at least claimed that wouldn't be an issue, as there doesn't appear to be supernatural elements as currently planned and presented. Fightful Select also reported over the weekend that they wouldn't, and as of Tuesday morning, that is still the game plan. One source happened to tell them, you can't beat ghosts with wrestling moves. End quote. Yes. No more fucking impervious to red lighting and no more Undertaker like raising from the dead after fucking 6 finishes. No, I'm sorry. No, that's not gonna work now.
Again, if you look over the history of wrestling, really, if you look over the history of this company, the Undertaker is the most successful gimmick in WWE history. Kane is right behind him. Okay, they struck gold in those two, and they had great longevity in the company. Very, very rare. You just don't find that very often. Is this more of where we're going to create more Undertakers? No, I don't. Again, Undertaker is kind of a once in a lifetime kind of character that you hit on here. And for him, he would do the spooky stuff. He'd raise his arms in the air and lightning bolts would shoot out and stuff. And even
the
that
fucking urn, the urn's opened up and you see fucking smoke coming out of the urn. His powers is disappearing.
Right, but it worked though. It worked.
Yeah.
I can't explain why, but it worked. Like Undertaker and Yokozuna in '94. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's some historically great feud in wrestling history, but whatever it was about it, I like that feud, and it worked for me.
I tell you what, man, when the fucking urn was opened up in that match, the death on the Undertaker's like face, like when that urn was like exposed, I mean, I was like fucking shocked. I'm like, what the fuck's going on here, man?
Yeah. And so, but that whole Undertaker Paul Bearer dynamic and everything, like it was special and it worked. And maybe it was a product of its time. Maybe if they tried that, let's say today, if they tried to create that character, I don't think it would work. I don't think it would work as well. So maybe it was just a product of its time. I do think that people have certain expectations now because frankly, the product is more reality based. That literally is what they have gone for. They've tried to go for a more reality based product and fewer goofy, cartoony gimmicks. So when you do something like this, because they don't do as much of that anymore, it stands out more. But you also got to work extra hard to make sure that you don't jump the shark with it, or else I think people may turn against it. And I don't want to see that happen. You know, I want to see, look, I'm sure this is very special to Bo Dallas. I'm sure it was a very emotional night for him, and he's very proud to carry on his brother's vision. His brother had a lot of fans. It was very upsetting what happened. I want to see him have success with this. But you got to treat it very carefully. You got to tread very carefully with this because this could go badly in so many ways because it's happened before. It's hard to pull off a gimmick like this long term, I think, in a believable way that people don't just get bored of it or it gets too corny. They've had a lot of time to put thought into this, right? It's been months that they've been building this up. So I assume they have plans in place that we're not even aware of yet, and we'll see. We don't even know who they're going to feud with, you know, who they're going to target, why are they targeting certain people? I'm curious to see, you know, I want to let it play out and see. I'm just trying to outline the potential pitfalls here because we've been down this road before with this type of gimmick, and it could go very badly if they're not careful.
Yeah, you mentioned The Undertaker. I think that's a great blueprint for what we should be following here because we mentioned the dead man gimmick, greatest gimmick of all time. It worked, and then even The Undertaker realized as he grew and as he matured, that gimmick wasn't going to work at the later stages of his career. I think that's a great blueprint for WWE, Triple H, and the Wyatt group to follow. Bray was basically, you know, that late 80s, early 90s Undertaker. That was the Fiend. And I don't really care to see that type of gimmick anywhere in pro wrestling, period. Not WWE, just in general. But the Wyatt Six, I want to say that I think what's best for them is following what The Undertaker did later in his career. He became a little bit more humanized. He opened up a little bit more. He started to shed some of that dead man's skin. He was still very much the dead man. The entrance, the lightning, the ambiance, everything about it. But when we got in the ring, The Undertaker wasn't impervious to pain. The Undertaker was, you know, he wasn't
doing MMA moves.
He was very humanized. I mean, yeah, he wasn't in there taking fucking. Now, he was in there taking several super kicks and kicking out, but it wasn't like him raising up like he started the fucking match. He's not 30 minutes in the match fucking looking fresh as a daisy.
No, but if you go back and you watch The Undertaker when he first debuted, what was his signature move? He choked people. That was it. That was like 95% of his matches. He would choke people and roll his eyes in the back
and he'd have
of his head.
that fucking hiss right in front of the camera.
That's right. He would hiss and everything else. Like Mankind used to make these weird noises like, like, you know, these guys would be doing these things. But then over time, you know what? It's funny you mentioned that Hogan did the same thing.
Man, I'm thinking of all the guys that did that, man. I'm thinking of the Berserker now with the husk.
Go walk down the street and do that and see the looks you get from people on the street. But like, you know,
I'm serious, man. That's the blueprint that they need to follow. I mean, a little bit more humanized for sure. Like that's the greatest, the greatest comparison I could make. Undertaker lived 30 fucking years, man. You can't be doing the dead man shit all his career. Being that was the best stage of his career. He wrestled the best matches in his entire career in that run, and that's what I think the blueprint needs to be for Bo. I don't know.
But for some people, they would look at that and go, they don't care about that. That like to some people, The Undertaker wasn't about having great matches that he was having in 2007 and 2008, when he was also, by the way, like physically in the best shape of his career during that period. So that's why a lot of people say like 07. I mean, he got hurt. Well, he got hurt a lot in his career, but that's kind of like peak Undertaker, like in the ring in the eyes of a lot of people. But some people don't look at The Undertaker for his work rate and his great matches that he had with Shawn Michaels and Triple H. They love the character and the character elements. Again, some people like, you know, tomatoes, and some people like apples, and some people like oranges, and everybody's got different tastes for what they're into and what they expect out of these characters. Some people may look at this and go, hey, I love this stuff. I see all these people online. This is cinema. And it kind of makes my skin crawl now, because every time I see something, this is cinema. This is cinema. This is going to feed families. This is going to feed generations.
I used the word cinema last night. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So you're as guilty of it as anybody. It's people like you that are perpetuating this, and I can't stand it. But like, some people are into that element of it. And then again, there are other people that go, look, I'm watching a fucking wrestling show. And to them, the most important thing is when the bell rings, what are these guys going to do? I don't give a shit about all this other stuff. I care about the match. So you have people who also fall into that category, and they have to find a good blend of the two. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see, guys. I hope to God that they have a plan going into Monday. How they follow it up is going to be definitely under the microscope. In fact, on Friday, if it's not mentioned on Friday, I will be very disappointed, because you can't have something like that end the show and then not have it literally be the first thing that's addressed on Friday. I mean,
in a serious way, too.
It's just left bloodied, body on top of body.
And in a serious way. It can't just be like we're you know, Corey Graves
We're
brings it
looking
up.
into it.
No, but like they bring it into it like a bizarre thing on Monday night. But moving on. No, like you got to be like talk in that tone of voice, like you're concerned about what happened and are we safe here tonight? You know, we have security all around the building. Nick Aldis made sure there's security everywhere. So yeah, I mean, the key is in the follow-up. I mean, I think that's true about a lot of things in wrestling.
I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully they do it right. I know I'm proud of what we saw last night. I love Bray. God rest his soul. I'm so happy for Taylor Rotunda. He's gonna kill it. I love the original iteration of Uncle Howdy. I thought it was fucking cool. He looked fucking great last night. So, you know,
You saw that?
I did. You know, in fact, I saw that. I watched it back today. I actually got a little teary-eyed watching it back today for a second time, because I was just in the moment last night and I was excited to talk about it. But watching it back, it just hit me a little bit differently today. It beats the B team. It beats fucking Eric Rowan carrying around a goddamn fucking spider in a cage. So, you know, whatever we got going on here, I hope that they do it right. Seriously.
Or Dexter Lumis. I mean, he's got nothing. You can't even say like, well, when they were doing this with him, they did nothing with him. At least now they're going to be doing something. And Joe Gacy, you know, this is his first foray up to the main roster. So, and I know he can work. Yeah, I've seen him.
So can Lumis.
Yeah, Lumis can too. I mean, Gacy, I feel like Gacy has more experience than he does. And I feel like I saw Gacy have more better matches in NXT than I did from Lumis.
Yeah.
But again, they can both work. It's just a matter of how much of that are we going to get the chance to see.
We'll keep an eye on it, guys. A couple of other smaller news and notes here before we get into the last bit of news here from AEW. WWE did trademark a new Bloodline name. And I know we talked about this earlier in the week. So did Jason. On June 11th, the company submitted a filing for the name Tola Tonga under the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office.
Yeah, I wonder who that could be for.
Gee Willikers, man. Who is that for?
I know. Gee golly. I don't know.
Hikuleo is coming over from New Japan. He worked his last show this month, and he will be joining the WWE reportedly. He is the brother of Tama Tonga and Tangaloa, plus what is he, Jason, 6'8"?
6'8".
6'8"? Tola Tonga.
Tall guy.
Well, Tala Tonga.
Maybe Talatonga is how they'll pronounce it.
Yeah. So we'll see him. And again, it all revolves around where Jacob Fatu is going to land. We don't know if he's going to end up on Solo side. We don't know if he's going to come in with Roman. It's definitely something also to look out for. And we're getting closer to Roman getting back to television. I could envision him being back by SummerSlam. So we'll see what happens there. But the bloodline is still ever growing. And as long as they keep it confined with these last couple of members joining and it doesn't get NWO level like we talked about last week, I think we're in good hands.
Yeah, I could even see Roman potentially being back in Money in the Bank. You know, I guess it depends. If they were to do, let's say, Cody and Solo and not do the 6-man tag on that show,
yep.
I could then envision them maybe even closing the show with that, and then Roman comes out at the end and we get a face-off with him and Solo. What a great cliffhanger that would be to lead into SmackDown that week. And I kind of hope for that because then, that means Roman would have a match at SummerSlam. Because I feel like we could potentially get Roman against Solo as soon as SummerSlam.
Again, on top of what we already kind of predicted and maybe mapped out for SummerSlam, adding that, we may be looking at an all-timer SummerSlam here.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, we're still, 6 weeks or so, 6 or 7 weeks out. But I'm looking ahead, and again, you look at the top matches, it looks like Rollins and Gunther, there's a pretty good chance we may get that. Maybe Balor and Priest. You've got Punk and McIntyre. You've got Cody and Orton, if we're lucky. We may end up with that. Orton had his eyes on that title.
He did.
If you saw it flash at the castle. So they were already teasing something there. Bayley and Nia, we know, are going to go at it for the women's title. Logan Paul and LA Knight. Even if they wrestle at Money in the Bank, I think he takes the title at SummerSlam. I'm sure we'll get a rematch out of it. And that right there, forget everything else. And I didn't even mention any tag team matches. I mean, that's a pretty strong card right there. But
have they dropped Randy Orton and Gunther, by the way?
Well, yeah, I think they may have. I mean, there's been no indication since Triple H made that comment. Huh. He said that Orton, after the King of the Ring, he said he's going to be take a little bit of time off, but then we'll run it back. I mean, it just seems like they've moved on from it. I mean, where do you even do that match?
I don't know. I mean, it's I was looking forward to that, but listen, as long as they give me an explanation as to why it's not happening, I'll be fine if they don't do it. But just don't drop it.
Yeah, and all you have to do, I mean, if you do that 6-man tag, for example, at Money in the Bank, whether his team wins or not, all it takes is one RKO, Cody Rhodes. That's all it takes, and then boom, you've got your setup right there for a title match. So. It's not like he has to go in there and beat Gunther. I'm not even sure he would beat Gunther. Maybe he loses again, and then he goes a little nutty. It just seems to me like Orton's got his own thing going on, though, right now with Owens and the Bloodline and Cody. And it would just feel kind of shoehorned in now if they just went back to him and Gunther.
Yeah. I think a lot of people would actually love to see an RKO on Mr. Rhodes, honestly. We'll see. Yeah.
And Triple H made the comment that it's not going to change the outcome of King of the Ring.
No.
Yeah, he made that clear. Like, Gunther's King of the Ring, that's not going to change. So looks like they may have moved on from that. I'm sure it won't be the last time we see it. It just may not be happening again anytime soon.
And finally, guys, WWE looking to expand partnerships in Puerto Rico and in Mexico. Oh, man, who saw this coming? After the TNA partnership, WWE's looking to open up several other doors here. WWE is looking to establish alliances and agreements with companies in both Puerto Rico and Mexico. Lucha Libre Online is reporting. No specific promotions have been named, but WWE has already knocked on the door of promotions in both areas. I'm sure Conan is ready and willing to pick up that phone.
Yeah.
Promotions in these areas include CMLL, AAA, IWA, and others. Tony Khan is somewhere pacing around, having a heart attack. WWE is no stranger to either location, with several events having been held in Puerto Rico and Mexico. Puerto Rico served as the host of New Year's Revolution 2005 and obviously Backlash last year, with Bad Bunny being the main event with Damian Priest. Now, Jason, I know you got a report on, or some information on Naomichi Marufuji. He's wrestling AJ Styles for Pro Wrestling Noah, and we are no stranger to Marufuji. You and I actually called the Marufuji match last August for, actually two Augusts ago at Terminal 5 with Eddie Kingston and Marufuji in one of the matches there.
That's right. We got him into House of Glory. My first exposure to Marufuji goes back even further than that, because when I used to go to Ring of Honor events at the Manhattan Center, we had one, and to this day, one of the greatest live events that I've ever seen. But on that show, we had a Marufuji match against Nigel McGuinness for the GHC heavyweight title. This was in New York City, and that was really my first exposure to Marufuji, and I was, blown away. And that was really, I think, during that period, late 2000s, that was like peak Marufuji. So the announcement that AJ Styles is returning to Japan to wrestle him on the Pro Wrestling Noah show on July 13th is a big deal to a lot of people. And what's interesting about it also is that very same day, and not even just at that same day, literally the same time that event and that match is going to be happening, WWE is sending Io Sky to Japan, and she is going to be wrestling for the new Marigold promotion. And she has a match on that show with Utami Hayashishida, and there was footage of her watching on a screen when the video of Io came up, and I guess she didn't know about it. She was all emotional because nobody told her. So those two matches are going to be going on simultaneously at the same time in Japan. And we take, I feel like a lot of people take this sort of thing for granted with AEW. We're kind of used to it by now. We have Forbidden Door every year. We have Forbidden Door coming up again in a few weeks.
We have Forbidden Door almost every week, regardless.
Yeah, we pretty much have Forbidden Door every other fucking week on TV. So, my God. So we take it for granted because we see it so often now. It's expected. But with WWE, it's not, because they never had an open borders policy in WWE. They would occasionally let somebody go work a match somewhere else. And it had to be for a very particular reason. It was very rare. It's just not the way Vince McMahon operated his company for so long. And now, look at what we've had just this year alone. If you see what's going on right now, we had Joe Hendry and Frankie Kazarian on NXT tonight representing TNA, in a battle royal to crown a #1 contender for the NXT championship. And we had Jordan Grace wrestling Roxanne Perez, a couple of weeks ago. So the stuff with TNA, this stuff we're hearing about now with AJ Styles going and wrestling for, Pro Wrestling Noah, the beginning of the year, they sent Regal's kid. Yeah. Charlie Dempsey over to Japan to wrestle for the Triple Crown in All Japan, and Shayna Baszler was working a blood sport match over WrestleMania weekend. I love it. And I hope they do more of it. I would like to see them expand that into other promotions and allow their talent, and not even just talent they may not be doing anything with, but, a big name here and there, like an AJ Styles, to go out and work a show here and there. I think there's a chance we see AJ on the Slammiversary card in TNA next month. That's the week after that match is taking place. I think there's a chance we might get that.
It's really no harm, no foul either. If they're not doing anything, terribly important on WWE television, why not? Let them branch out and let them feel important elsewhere if you're not using them in a prominent role.
Yeah, and just to kind of forge these relationships, again, there's always an ulterior motive with WWE. If there's nothing in it for them in the end, then they're not going to bother doing it. And I joked at the beginning of this show, when you look at what's happened so far in this relationship with NXT and TNA, it feels kind of lopsided. But I'm sure part of it also is they're getting a good look at some of this talent, like a Jordan Grace, who will likely end up in WWE, and it's a chance for them to go out and work with some of these talents who one day may be working for them. And maybe that's how they look at it, as kind of a win-win. It gives them a window into a talent pool that they may want to pluck people from. And for these companies, they get to work with WWE, and that's a hard thing for them to turn down. In the end, the fans win. Yeah, I think it's cool for the talent, but I think it's cool for the fans too. And there may be fans who have no idea from TNA and, Noah and Marigold and promotions like this. But I think the more they do that, I think it's a cool thing. It's something we haven't seen them do before, and hopefully we get to see more of it.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing as well. I agree on all points there. Marigold, you could think what you want of Rossi Ogawa, but WWE is going to be using him and his resources to enhance their women's division. And like you said, there's always an ulterior motive. I could see WWE plucking talent from TNA and from Marigold, and they're going to benefit themselves. And what are these companies really getting out of it? I could see people talking about that online, about all these other places. What are they getting in return? They're not really getting anything but WWE's name attached to them, and WWE's going to reap the benefits 100%.
Yeah, they're getting some WWE rub. I don't know that the exposure, like TNA, for example, apparently they're Yeah, their ratings haven't gone up or anything these last few weeks.
What are you talking about? It impacted 99,000 viewers last week.
Oh, wow. Okay. Gee, stand corrected. What a bump.
We did about 3/4 of that in the first episode that you joined the show.
Yeah, well, you said it, not me.
I'm sorry, man. I got to get my cracks in there. But listen, the reason why I talked about this is because Rey Mysterio is lobbying, Jason, for a show in Mexico at Azteca Stadium or Arena Mexico. Do you see something like that happening eventually? Like we saw in Puerto Rico with Backlash, with WWE going to Mexico. I know Azteca Stadium is like fucking 90,000 people. I don't think WWE would do like a regular fucking B-level pay-per-view there. I could see maybe WrestleMania there. Do you see WrestleMania happening there, or one of these B-level shows happening in Arena Mexico? It's like 16,000, 17,000 people.
Yeah, I mean, like a Clash at the Castle in Cardiff type of situation. They went to Cardiff. They were in a stadium for that show. They had about 62,000 people for that show, I believe. So even in a stadium that maybe can fit 80 or 90, and you don't know what their setup and their stage is going to always take up some seats. If they put 50,000 people, that's still a huge crowd. So do I think they're going to run a show there? Absolutely. And I think part of it also is they want to go places where they are being paid to come. So if the local, whether it's the city, the municipality, whatever it may be, if they're willing to pay WWE a certain site fee or give them some sort of, tax break or incentive, and I'm talking generally, not even just Mexico, if there's a reason to, run a show there and they get lured in some way, then yeah, they're willing to run a show probably almost anywhere. And there are a lot of wrestling fans down in Mexico. There's a rich wrestling culture down there. They have a lot of lucha talent that work for their company. And I think they can utilize somebody like Rey Mysterio to help promote that event. They could feature him, in a major match on that show. Maybe we get a Rey and Dom, hair versus mask match or something. They come up with some kind of big attraction for it. That will sell. I promise you that will sell.
WWE's got some top-tier Mexican talent as well. Andrade, Santos
Dragon
Escobar,
Lee.
Dragon Lee. I mean, they got
I think was in that Battle Royal tonight also.
What a loser he is, huh? He lost to Carlito last night. I mean, how low can he get?
It doesn't get much lower than that unless you're Chad Gable and you got shot in the head.
Carlito, man, on the fucking most mid-run of his life, man. Jesus Christ.
Hey, you know what, though? He's getting that bag.
I know.
He's getting that bag.
And he hangs out with Judgment Day. Who can beat it? Whatever.
There you go.
A couple more news and notes, guys, and then we'll get into your super chats. A couple of AEW notes here. We got Adam Page. News on Adam Page finally coming back to the company. And this is not a surprise now with AEW announcing that Blood and Guts will be taking place at the end of July. Former AEW World Champion Adam Hangman Page has been out of action since early March and AEW Revolution. Page has not been injured, and he was out of action for personal reasons and had contractually obligated time off to tend to these issues. Prior to that, he's been engaged in a lengthy feud with Swerve Strickland, who since has become AEW champion. Now, after what will end up being nearly 4 months out, Fightful is told that Adam Page is poised for a return. There is no date nailed down, but it's expected within the next month, like early July. So thus far, we've not heard any creative plans, they say, for Hangman, though he was expected to continue as a heel. I'll get to that in a second. They're also told that they don't know if the absence of Adam Page is going to be added on top of his current contract, but they are told that the absence wasn't a surprise and both sides knew it was coming. Despite Dynamite being near his home this week, they have not heard if he's planned to be at the show on Wednesday. Now, I'll start with this, Jason. Him being a heel, the Elite announced Blood and Guts on Wednesday. They tried to recruit Swerve to be the fifth man for their team. They didn't really lay down the law if it's going to be 4 men or 5 men. It could go either way. I don't really give a shit. 4 or 5 guys in a War Games-like match. It is what it is. But they want a 5th guy, which would then leave the Acclaimed and whomever else if Swerve ends up joining the Elite, which is not going to happen. But with the Elite, we got Matt, Nick, Okada, and Jack Perry. And we are assuming that Swerve is going to be leading Team AEW. Now, on the other side, we also see the Acclaimed, minus Billy Gunn, because Billy Gunn being in this match would be a joke. So we got Max Caster and Anthony Bowens and Swerve Strickland. So we if it stays 4, we need 1 more guy for Team AEW. In my opinion, I think that would be Adam Page. I don't know how you feel about that because he was suspended from the Elite. I could see him coming back wanting to get some sort of karma coming back to his buddies or some revenge back to his buddies. Do you see Adam Page coming in as a babyface, or do you see him continuing to go after Swerve and potentially we get a main event at All In for the World's Heavyweight Championship between Swerve and Adam Page?
I think he still comes in obsessed with trying to take the title away from Swerve. And if that's the case, then he would be playing the heel role, when he comes back. I think he could end up on either side of the fence in a blood and guts match. I think even though the Elite fired him from the Elite, I don't know who else that fifth man would be. If they insist on doing 5-on-5, and it sounds like that's the direction that they're going in, and I'm with you. I mean, what? Just do 4-on-4. Why does it need to be 5-on-5? You got 4 Elite members. Why do they need to go out and find a fifth man? But if they did, I don't know who that fifth man is. I could see it being Hangman just because, he wants to be on the opposing side of whatever team Swerve is on. So I think he fits in either of those positions. Him being on Team AEW and having to get along with Swerve is also an interesting way to go about doing it. And then you do, let's say, Swerve, Hangman, and the Acclaimed, and that could be Team AEW, and what a team that is. I mean, if that's the best AEW you can come up with, I think they're probably going to come up short again. When you got MJF there and you got all these people, you would think they would want to be on a blood and guts team. But yeah, I was looking at Wembley Stadium and I was looking at Will Ospreay in the main event, and I'm starting with each passing week to look at it, especially let's say if Ricochet is going to come in, and it sure does look like he is going to come in, probably in time to be at Wembley if they wanted him on that show. We could end up in a situation where it's Swerve and Hangman for the world title at Wembley and maybe Ospreay on the undercard against Ricochet. And that could be, the way that they use him on that show, and they save an Ospreay world title win for next year, or for some other time down the road. I think that you can get one more match between Swerve and Hangman. I know it's been done a few times already, but not one-on-one for the championship. We've seen it. What was it? A triple threat at Revolution, right? Samoa Joe was involved. We have not gotten that one-on-one match yet. And I think they could headline Wembley with that match. I still think Ospreay in the main event is the way to go, but if they wanted to do Swerve and Hangman for the world title to close out that show, I think that they can do that. I think that's a big enough main event. That feud's been going on for so long. I mean, we're going to be coming up on a year soon, right? They had their first match. Was it Wrestle Dream? I think they had their first match.
Yeah, October, yeah.
Yeah, so we're coming up soon on a full year. That would be a match worthy enough of being in the main event. Don't forget, though, 2 weeks later, they have All Out. You go from All In to All Out. So maybe they do it there in Chicago. I don't know. But I do feel like we're going to get that match. He'll be a heel when he comes back in. And only then, when he loses, assuming he loses, to Swerve, I think in the end, despite all that's gone on and the man breaking into his house and that Texas death match they had last year where they tried to kill each other, I think in the end it ends with Hangman shaking the man's hand, and they kind of earn respect for each other, and Hangman ends up back as a babyface.
I wouldn't mind that. The story's there. I've been crying about they need to focus on story. Why not go with one of the best stories that you've told in the last 12 months? So what you're pitching is that, and I know you and I talked about it last week, with Ospreay getting the match against Swerve on Long Island at Forbidden Door, the tournament is already starting. Tony's starting the tournament on Wednesday. It's Pac versus Claudio for one of the quarterfinal matches in the tournament. So we're already underway with the tournament. So if Ospreay's wrestling Swerve and the tournament's already underway, it's going to be difficult to get him involved in the tournament. So what you're pitching is Page to be involved in the tournament and have him win the tournament?
Yeah, because the winner of the Owen is going to get a world championship match at All In, so it would have to be that way.
Yeah.
They're not doing Blood and Guts until July 24th, and so by then he would have that number one contender spot locked up, which would maybe add a little more drama if they had to coexist on the same side. Because I think it's July 24th. I don't know where that Dynamite is. I don't know what city they're in that night. But that's 2 weeks after the final of the Owen. So, yeah, if he was going to get that title match, he would have to be in the tournament and he would have to win, which means that he would have to be back either this week or next week. And I think they're talking about maybe the beginning of July for a return. So that's cutting it close. I don't know, but yeah, they're starting with the Now, is it a qualifying match or are they calling it quarterfinal?
And that's the quarterfinal. I seen the graphic today before the show. Yeah.
Okay.
Claudia, I mean, Pac already said he was going to be in the tournament. I didn't really
Yeah,
get
people were declaring, I think. People were already declaring without
I don't know where
qualifying.
Claudio came from, but
I don't know. I saw he had a match. I guess it was on Collision. Did you see this clip of him in the match on Collision where he was like all hopped up on something?
yes, he was like walking the barricade.
He was like, I don't know if he did mushrooms in the back or what. I don't know what he did, but he was feeling it, and he was going a little crazy in that match. See, and people say the man has no charisma. Just watch that match and tell me he has no charisma.
What are you talking about? He fucking brews his own he makes his own coffee. He's got his own coffee company, doesn't he?
And he knows 5 languages.
It's fucking great. Love Claudio. My problem, Jason, with this blood and guts match is, I've been openly critical about AEW, and a lot of people on that side don't want to hear it. I have no reservations about letting my feelings be known about this. I don't really get the sense, and I said this on Wednesday when I was live with Jesse, I don't get a sense with blood and guts happening that we genuinely need blood and guts this year. It doesn't feel like it really warrants it happening this year, and I feel like they're just doing it because, it's chaos, and this is going to be a huge selling point, and it's unpredictable, and it's going to be bloody, and it's going to be this and that. But the Elite came out and said, we want to fight the best that AEW has to offer, and we want to show how violent we can be, which isn't
that what Anarchy in the Arena was for?
It's fucking ridiculous. I mean, we saw a guy get hung upside down and super kicked with fucking thumbtacks at the bottom of sneakers. We saw a guy burned alive. And a guy fucking almost run over with vehicular homicide happening on fucking television.
We had exploding shoe. We had all kinds of stuff in that match. And we're not supposed so now they're going to prove to us how violent they are. Wasn't that what we just got in Las Vegas? I mean, yeah, of course it's ridiculous. And you know that when we get to Wembley, you know what we're going to get there.
Yeah, we're going to get a fucking Stampede match.
Stadium Stampede. It's like the same match. Now, granted, the blood and guts is 2 rings, but it's basically the same match back to back to back. It's total overkill. But they feel like, okay, well, this has become a staple now. They could try to pop a big rating with it. Frankly, if they're going to be adding more shows, as they did this year, like pay-per-views, Blood and Guts should be its own pay-per-view.
Agreed.
They insist on keeping it around. That way, at least you get the match without the commercial breaks. Yeah. You could build an entire pay-per-view around that. So if they're going to keep it, then I think in next year, in 2025, they should have their own dedicated show, maybe in July, and it could be Blood and Guts, and that can be the show. I got a question the other day, from my show in the mailbag asking me, is it too late to put together a women's blood and guts match for this year? Because you could have Chris Statlander lead her team and Willow Nightingale lead her team. And I don't hate that idea, but I'm a believer that if you're going to do a match like that there should be a few different people who have some kind of personal issue and there should be a need for it. And to just do it for the sake of doing it, like a match like that, and I feel the same way about War Games, that I'm not a fan of. And so, yes, it is too late to do a women's blood and guts match. Are there any women's feuds right now? Even Statlander and Willow, like she just turned on Willow a few weeks ago. Are there any women's feuds that I'm missing that I'm not thinking of that are so deeply personal that you would put them in a blood and guts match? I can't think of any.
No, they had the most perfect opportunity to do it when the Outcasts were first being put together, and they led a new group of Outcasts, WWE Outcasts, to come on into the company, make the division their own, and the OG women of the locker room should have banded together, and that should have been the first blood and guts, which I thought where they were going, but they never gave it to us, and that fell completely flat on its face.
Yeah, and so they don't have anything like that right now. Frankly, even I'll agree, even on the men's side. Given that we just had Anarchy in the Arena, and I know the Elite is like their top angle right now, but even that, it just feels like we're just doing it for the sake of doing it. So, again, it feels that way. They're going to do it. They have their reasons for doing it. I understand that. Who you put with the Elite, it could be Hangman. I saw somebody mention Christian Cage. Yes, it could be because they're friendly with each other. I could see that. But look, at the end of the day, the Elite is still the top angle they are pushing in this company, and they are bound and determined to get this thing over and to get Jack Perry over. I think he's walking out a Long Island TNT champion in a few weeks. And we'll see if in the end they can do that.
My
We'll
question to
see.
you, though, is it too late? Because I brought up another point on Wednesday that, and I don't know how many of you guys feel the same way that I do. What is the end goal with this storyline? I mean, do you feel like the company is in jeopardy? Do you feel like the company is about to be overthrown? Do you take these guys to be a serious threat? What's the end goal here? What's the payoff?
No, I don't take them seriously at all. And it's hard to get people to believe that they're any kind of threat to the company itself when they've established that Tony Khan is sitting right there every week.
Yeah.
He's right there. And now he has his own designated representative to come out and make announcements for him. So no, the company doesn't feel like it's in any, I mean, the company may be in jeopardy, but it has nothing to do with the Young Bucks. But no, it doesn't feel that way at all. So if that was the end goal, then they have failed. If that is the end goal, then yes, they have failed. Outside of that, I don't know what the end goal is here. I mean, to topple the elite, I guess, and then it's just a matter of who is that? Is it an MJF? Is he going to be the one to lead the charge in the end? And what does that look like? Because I'm sure coming out of blood and guts, this is just going to continue. I don't know how far they take it. I feel like they built this up so big that they feel like they can just run with this for the foreseeable future. I hope they have a good ending for it. I hope they have a good plan for how to wrap this up. Maybe it's Kenny Omega. They're waiting for him to come back, and so he can wrestle Okada and take the Continental title from him. And once they lose all their championships, the tag titles, the Continental title, TNT, let's say if Perry wins the TNT, maybe that's the beginning of the end. That's like their power source. I don't know. But the idea that, oh, we're taking over, it's like this hostile takeover of sorts, it just rings very hollow when we already know that the president and CEO of the company is sitting right there every single week. And it's just very odd. Like, there's no explanation for why the Bucks are allowed to get away with making some decisions but not others. It's kind of all over the place.
Yeah, I'm concerned about that. I don't really get where the payoff is, and like you said, hollow's a very good word to describe it. There's just no feeling there. Blood and guts, honestly, shouldn't even be taking place this year, or at least it feels that way. I don't know, man. I wish for the best. I'm excited for All In. The prospect of All In being a big show, it will be a big show. There's going to be some great matches on that show. The Owen's going to be great, but outside that, man, I'm not excited about anything, honestly.
Yeah, I'm excited for Forbidden Door. I mean, look, Swerve and Ospreay. I'm looking forward to that match. You know, that's going to be a lot of fun. And like you said, the Owen is coming up, and Wembley is coming up, and I'm sure that's going to be a big show. So there's a lot to get excited about. But again, when this is your big angle, and so much is built around what's going on with the elite, you want to make sure you stick the landing. That's going to be very important. So many of these big angles in wrestling history, and there were a lot of comparisons made to the NWO when this first started, which was laughable. But, the concept of having a group that would be taking over. And look how that ended. Like, how did that end? Was there ever really a real ending? No, it just kind of went until it petered out. Hopefully they have a good ending in mind and they stick the landing, whatever that may be. Maybe Wembley. Maybe the end of the summer they can wrap all this up.
We do have a couple other things here, guys. One, Wardlow. Wardlow is probably on his way out of the company, but this may actually facilitate that a little quicker. AEW star Wardlow files new trademark for his own name. Three-time TNT champion Wardlow hasn't had a match in AEW in almost 3 months. Not surprising. Having last fought then AEW champion Samoa Joe in a title match at Big Business in early March. Since then, talks of Wardlow's frustration of potential departure from AEW have continued, adding gas to the fire. Whether intentionally or not, Wardlow is now filing a trademark for his name, Wardlow. Now, if you guys don't know, his full name is Michael Austin Wardlow. So that is his real name. He did go at MJF. When the MJF merchandise Lone Wolf themed gear came out, he mentioned something on a post on social media. He says, and I quote, "Very happy is Wardlow. He wants to be a 6'3", 270-pound monster athlete so bad, now stealing my whole identity. Call yourself the Lone Wolf all you want. You're still just a pussy that I squash like nothing. Almost feel bad for the little boy, but the disrespect has gone way too far for far too long." End quote. Wardlow, Jason, I know we talked about this in nauseam that he probably is on his way out. I mean, I could see and sense that he's frustrated, but, a lot of what we see with Wardlow and MJF. I'll get to MJF in a second as well because I'm curious about what you think he's doing at Forbidden Door. But could we potentially be seeing MJF and Wardlow get an alliance here at some point? I mean, that's where I thought it was going, but now I'm not really so sure.
That's where I thought it was going too. They kind of have this uneasy alliance. Maybe when Wardlow either quits the Undisputed Kingdom or gets booted out. I don't know what's going on with Adam Cole. I think a lot of it has to do with him not being ready to come back. That's kind of why they did what they did at Double or Nothing, where it felt like they blew that off. Because I guess he's not ready to come back anytime soon. MJF and Wardlow, I think, could definitely be a direction for a feud. But, when they wrestled last, Wardlow destroyed him, with 10 power bombs. And now it's like, if anybody could use a big win, it's Wardlow. Do you see them putting Wardlow over MJF?
No,
your
MJF
top
basically
babyface in the company.
No, he also moved on from the whole Undisputed Kingdom stuff. So it's like, why the fuck would he go back to that?
It would feel like a step backwards.
Yeah.
So it could just be him, just working with him on Twitter. And although I'm sure there is a lot of very real frustration there, I always got the sense from hearing him speak and do interviews that, is anybody ever really a lifer? But he wanted to make things work in AEW. AEW was his home. AEW gave him his first big break. And I'm sure he genuinely wanted to make it work and become world champion and carry this company. And he was building all this momentum. Honestly, if you look at the trajectory of his career in the last 2 years, since he beat MJF, I don't think AEW deserves him because they have done wrong by him so badly, so many times, and they have squandered whatever they had with him that if I'm him, he would have every right to be furious. I don't know what's going on in his head. I don't know. It's very easy to look at this and go, oh, he's going to leave, right? I look at Ricky Starks and I'm thinking, oh, he's going to leave. It's probably why he's not being featured on television right now. I don't know what's going on in Wardlow's head. Maybe he doesn't want to leave. Maybe he's just that frustrated because he wants to stay, but maybe he just doesn't see a future. So I think the best thing for him, frankly, would be to go away somewhere else. It's like a baseball player he's not cutting it anymore on the team that he's on. And sometimes a change of scenery, you go play for another team and all of a sudden you get a new lease on life. I feel like it's a similar thing with Wardlow. Let him go somewhere else, whether that is WWE or wherever. Maybe he hits a bunch of different places and hits the scene and he just goes crazy, and let him build his name back up because he could be something. He's not going to be that in AEW. Tony Khan has had so many chances with him. How many chances does he deserve before this guy says, you know what, fuck this. When my deal is up, I'm out of here.
I wouldn't blame him. I hope that's the case.
I wouldn't blame him either. I'm surprised. Look, I totally would understand if that's how he feels. And I do think that someone who looks like him, who can do athletically the things that he can do, and he can talk. Okay, people don't talk about that very often, but it's not like he can't cut a promo to save his life. He can speak, he can work. He could be a star. It's not going to happen in AEW. If he was going to be a star, he'd already be a star, or you would see some sort of vision for him. What vision is there for him?
Nothing.
What indication has there been that, they got a plan for this guy?
I don't want to create doom and gloom here, but Jade left. Jade was considered a building block there for the women's division. Wardlow is probably on his way out. Ricky Starks is on his way out. Like, those are future pieces that they're letting just sit there and squander. Like, I don't want to say that it's a problem, but from an outside perspective looking in, building blocks leaving the company like that so earlier in their career, I find that to be a fucking problem. I don't know what you guys think, but
building blocks at a time when, look at a lot of the names that are being pushed.
Yeah.
Adam
established
Copeland,
names, yeah.
Christian Cage, Malachi Black, although maybe not so much these days, but they brought in a lot of names from the outside. They collectively, not just the House of Black, but like collectively, there are a lot of names like that eat up a lot of television time. And I do wonder how some of the originals and how some of those guys who were maybe being pushed more in the early days are looking at this and how they're feeling. Because it looked like at one time the company was really building things around Darby Allin and Sammy Guevara and Jungle Boy and Wardlow, and these were going to be the faces of the future in this company. And with some of them, that's just not the case anymore. I don't see that changing. There's been no indication. Like you said, it didn't even hit me until you just mentioned it now that Wardlow has not had a match since Big Business.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me.
Where he won a battle royal, got a title shot, cashed it in 2 weeks later.
No, he didn't win a battle royal. He
Oh,
won,
what
he
was
won
it?
a
A gauntlet.
it was a scramble match.
Whatever. Fucking scramble match.
I don't
Whatever.
give a shit, but whatever. He won a scramble match. Remember, I made a joke.
Oh, is
I
it
said,
that
like,
Meat Madness one? Is that the one that he won?
It was supposed to be Meat Madness, but remember Tony Khan said that people were hurt, so he was tabling it, and then it just turned into like a big scramble match. Whatever. Yeah, whatever. So anyway, he won the scramble match and then cashed in like a week later to get his title match, and then he fucking lost. And he hasn't done anything since. And it didn't hit me until just now. Like, he has not wrestled. He has not had a match. He has not done anything. And that was in March. So we're looking at 3 months. That's insane. How many more months of his career is he going to waste away there?
Hey, listen, at least his hair's growing out. That's a positive.
Well, that's the thing. I think when he cut the ponytail or had the ponytail cut off, he lost all of his powers.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll bring him good luck. It'll be like a lucky rabbit's foot on his head. I don't know. But I wish the best for him. I think he's got a ton of potential and a ton of talent. Then this is not about beating up on AEW. It's just seeing things for what it is. That's it. Nothing I'm saying here is a lie.
No.
Everything I'm talking about here, this is reality. This is what's happening. This is what I'm observing. And I'm wondering and asking questions about why did this guy stall out so badly? It's not like he's been plagued by injuries nonstop. He's always getting hurt. You know, sometimes that happens. Look at Keith Lee. Unfortunately, he's had a lot of health issues. I can't put that all on Tony Khan. You know, he's got to deal with injuries and things of that nature that are out of his control. I don't see that being the case with Wardlow. So I would love to get a good answer on this. And absent that, I would not at all be surprised if when his contract came due, he tested the free agent waters. And I am certain that Triple H or Shawn Michaels would love to get their hands on Wardlow and bring him into the fold.
Well, that Solomonster, he's a WWE paid shill, man.
He's a shill, man. When's the check gonna clear?
He hates AEW, man. I don't believe this. He's just as bad as that guy JD.
So
Yeah, sure.
much negativity.
Sure.
He's rubbing.
One more thing.
I mean,
I'm sorry.
I'm just saying. It's we call balls and strikes. It's called reality. And there are things that frustrate us. We see people stuck in neutral, like a car stuck in the mud. The wheels are spinning, but they're not going anywhere. And we ask why. That's part of our job, to ask why. Why is this happening? Why is this not happening? Why is this guy who had all the momentum in the world 2 years later, he was here, and now he's here? That's it.
If this is balls and strikes, to fucking Wardlow ain't even in the fucking game. He's sitting on the bench in the bullpen, waiting to fucking get called in.
0 for 34. He fit right in on the Mets. You know what? If this AEW thing doesn't work out, hey, brother, we can use you in Queens.
Listen, man, one more thing. I know you're a big fan of both, as am I. We got the Owen here, and MJF and Roosh was announced for Wednesday. It's commercial free. It's great. Anytime MJF's on the show, you got my eyes. But Roosh, we all thought that this match was going to take place at Forbidden Door. Now, it still could. We can get a match on Wednesday, tomorrow, and then that leads to another match at Forbidden Door. I heard some people murmuring online that Roosh may not be allowed to work the Forbidden Door pay-per-view because of CMLL and all this other nonsense that's going on. I don't know why, because he's a contracted talent to AEW. I don't know why that would be an issue. But if it's not the case and MJF is not wrestling Roosh at Forbidden Door and we get this one match, one and done on Wednesday, what is MJF doing at Forbidden Door? Is he in the Owen? And is he going to wrestle Shingo in the quarterfinals?
I would love to see it. I think that MJF should absolutely be in the Owen. There's no reason for him not to be. Why would he not be in the Owen?
I don't know. Yeah, Tony. Why?
Well, yeah. Why ask why? But I'm not convinced that he won't be wrestling Roosh. When this match was first announced, I looked at it and said I could see there being, like a no contest or some kind of disputed finish or non-finish that then leads to a rematch between the two at Forbidden Door. So I still think there's a chance of that happening, but MJF should absolutely be in the Owen. We know Shingo was in. We had a little video package air on TV. Last year they had Satoshi Kojima was in the tournament.
Yeah.
Shingo's a bigger name these days than he is, and Shingo is just a great wrestler. I mean, he goes out there and just, Sheamus talks about banger after banger. Shingo's the same way. I mean, this guy is virtually incapable of having a bad match. So you're going to get quality stuff out of him. And him and MJF, I think, could be an incredible match. But MJF not being in the Owen would be very odd, given the fact that the last time we saw him in the ring, he lost the championship and he was hurt, and all this stuff was going on with the devil and the mask and everything else. Why would MJF, in coming back, not want to take advantage of this tournament where he could end up back in the main event of Wembley Stadium where he was a year ago? Like, who would not want to be back in the main event at Wembley Stadium? So if he's not in the Owen, I would love for them to come up with one hell of an explanation when people are declaring, Pac is declaring. I love Pac, but if Pac is declaring for the Owen and MJF is not, something is wrong here.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't make sense why he wouldn't want to be there.
No.
Brian, Shingo, Pac, and Claudio are the first 4 men in the Owen, and there is a field of 8. So we got 4 more. One of these spots is taken up by a New Japan talent. So there'll be 7 AEW talent and 1 New Japan talent. The women, we have Chris Statlander, Willow, Mariah May, Saraya, and Hikaru Shida already announced for the tournament. So,
and that's a pretty good bracket so far.
That's a good field, yeah.
Yeah, I like that field so far.
And like you said last week, Mariah May, because we talked about it last week, Mariah May and Saraya in the Owen, we could see that again happening in the tournament.
Yeah, again, people were bitching, and I defended AEW on that when a lot of people gave them shit when Saraya beat Mariah, and they're like, well, why are they beating Mariah? First of all, Mariah May has very quietly gotten a lot of television time over these last few months, and I don't just mean the segments with Tony. She's had a lot of matches, like, consistently. We talked earlier in the show about how important it is to be consistent with people and making appearances on TV. They've been building her up for something. They've been giving her a lot of time, more than most of the women ordinarily would get on Dynamite. But her losing to Saraya, I felt like, was part of a longer play here that would factor into the Owen, because Saraya wrestled at Wembley last year and won the title. So why not tease the possibility she may go back again? And then Mariah gets her win back over her maybe in the finals. I still feel that way.
I like it. You know who also is consistent on television? Mina.
And that's okay with me.
That's okay
Mina.
with a lot of people.
I love Mina. Mina's great.
Yes, I agree. I hope you guys were okay with what we delivered to you today. We are wrapping up here. We're going to get into your super chats. Thank you guys very much for the 2,800 consistent in here, man. Thank you very much. 1,100 likes.
Wow.
Great. And you guys are getting those super chats in. I love to see the energy, and we are going to get into your super chats right now. Please make sure you follow us on social media. Everything you need is linked down in the description below. Please go follow Jason on his YouTube channel. Again, everything is linked in the description below.
By the way, before you get into the super chats here, one more quick thing just to bring up. Did you see the Bully Ray thing where he asked people before Busted Open today who they thought were the 3 biggest heels in wrestling today? Currently. Yeah.
I did see the tweet. I actually replied. Jokingly, I put CM Punk because I'm kind of willing into existence a heel CM Punk. But outside that, I said Christian Cage and Don Callis. The third one is up in the air. I don't know who that was.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Don Callis is a good one. Because my list has Christian Cage, Dominic Mysterio, and Logan Paul.
Logan Paul's a good one.
Yeah.
Who was his top 3? Did he give the answer?
I have no idea.
He said that somebody gets a special gift if they got it right. I don't know where it is.
Yeah, I don't usually listen to Bully Ray, but I saw the tweet and it got me thinking, and I said, well, this would be my 3. But I'm sure everybody would have their own.
That damn engagement farmer on X. What is he doing?
Yeah, that's how it is.
Anyway, guys, let's get into these super chats. Gabriel Boss. Raw is the best show this week, JD. Yes, by far. It hasn't even we haven't gotten Dynamite or SmackDown yet, but yes. He says, yeah, maybe, unless TK surprises us with a great show on Wednesday. Forbidden Door, for sure, will be the best show all month. I'm sure it's going to be a great show, man. I'm not comparing shows, but Raw was a banger show. And if you didn't watch it, shame on you. Michael Krause with a $2 super chat. Good day, JD and Jason. Congrats on 160,000 subs. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that, brother. We hit it last night. Thank you. Vincent O'Connell with a $20 super chat. So with WWE and TNA working together, can you see Drew going to TNA for a spell? You and Jason are great and have helped me get through the tough times of divorce and vertigo, costing my license. Thanks, Vincent. I'm sorry to hear that, brother, and we are here for you. Some of the best comments that I get is when you guys tell us that we help you get through whatever you're going through, man. It's incredibly humbling, and I love to hear it, man. And everything's going to be fine. Dark days happen, and there's sunny days ahead. Believe me, I've been through them. But Jason, can you see Drew going to TNA? Like you mentioned, AJ Styles potentially working for TNA.
Yeah, and actually, the longer this whole thing about him quitting goes on for, it kind of plays into that story. If he were to make an appearance there, he was a world champion in that company.
Yeah.
So get one appearance or one match out of it, why not?
I see somebody in the chat. Yes, we forgot to mention. I did see this scroll across my timeline this week. Takeshita is in fact in the G1. That's a great move.
Yeah, he is representing AEW and DDT.
Yeah.
In the G1. So that's going to be. Eddie Kingston was in the G1 last year, and I was worried when I heard that. I was happy for him, but it's a grueling schedule, and he's not a rookie in the business anymore. So I didn't know how that was going to go. He made it through the G1 okay, and then of course you see what happened on just a random spot in a match. Broke his leg, and he fucked himself up pretty badly. But at least he made it through the G1 in one piece.
I see some people in the chat mentioning if we talked about the Undertaker comments in regards to Tony Khan. I actually left that out of the show because I think Jason and I pretty much have went over in detail for the last several weeks what's wrong with the AEW creative process. And the Undertaker, he didn't really say anything egregious. He just said he just wonders if Tony Khan is the right guy to lead AEW, to be competition for WWE. Right now, they're not. And right now, he's not doing a really good job at it. So that's where I stand as well. So,
yeah, and Undertaker, he doesn't. I guarantee you, he doesn't watch AEW.
No.
He sees what's going on. I'm sure he keeps tabs on what's going on, and he's aware maybe on a more kind of broader scale. But I guarantee you, he's not watching week to week and the storylines Tony Khan is booking. So he's speaking more broadly. I'm not saying he's wrong. But Undertaker is not sitting there watching Dynamite every single week like we are.
No. Lewis Anthony, thank you for the new membership, brother. Appreciate it. Raging Girl Gamer with 44 months. Thank you, Rage. Hey, JD, on Destiny 2, do you have the Kvastov yet? Yes, I do. I love it. I will. It's a foreign language, bro. I can't
Speaking
explain.
some kind of language here that I don't know. The Kalishnikov. What?
It's an auto rifle in the game. Thank you, Rage. Yes, I love it. I got it. It was a pain in the ass to get, but I love it. I'm just Kyle with a 21-month membership. Thank you, Kyle. Joker's Voice with a 10. Hail, Salamonster and JD. You two have helped me put my thoughts into focus for my channel. Thank you both. Salamonster, my offer to JD is open for you. WrestleMania 41 in my town, at my bar. First drink is on me.
Thank you, brother. It's very kind of you.
We may be there against our own volition, Jokers, because House of Glory is supposedly running a show next April, so we may be there.
Yeah, we're waiting to find out what's going on there.
Dwayne Jackson, thank you, brother, for the $100 super chat. This is one of two from Dwayne Jackson. He says, with all the old AEW pay-per-views now accessible on Triller, and AEW trying to get new TV deals and possibly a streaming deal, what happens then? Is the AEW pay-per-view on Triller defeating the purpose for a price if things are to be bundled with a new TV deal anyway? I think it's just right now, and I think that will change when we get the new TV deal. I don't know what you think, Jason, but I think it's just for right now that they're bundling all this shit together.
Yeah, it's just temporary.
Yeah.
I mean, believe me, if they make a deal with Warner Brothers Discovery, then this Triller stuff is going to disappear like that.
Yeah, AEW is very adamant about getting everything that they have in the hands of the fans. It's very important to Tony Khan, as you can see when he talks about it. He wants a centralized hub for all the AEW shows, including some of the stuff that we have not been privy to, like that first All In, and that homecoming show at that Daly's place that was not televised.
Yeah, it had a certain name. The House Always Wins, I think maybe is what they called it. Yeah. So again, any kind of streaming deal, I would have to think that they make with Warner Brothers Discovery would probably have exclusivity. If that's the case, then the stuff on Triller would just disappear. It's not going. The fact they're doing this now does not hurt, their chances of getting a streaming deal. They just want to put it somewhere in the meantime, and so this is the place where they put it.
Yeah. Alucard with a 199 and a 199. He says, I believe in Uncle Howdy. WWE, don't fuck this up. And do you see the Wyatt 6 targeting the Final Testament? Well, that would be very underwhelming, Alucard. I don't want to see that. No.
No, I don't want to see that either. Plus, that would indicate that the Wyatt 6 would be baby faces. It's kind of hard to get behind a group as baby faces when they slaughtered half the roster and blood splattered and it looked like they killed a dozen people. I don't know that makes them baby faces. So my guess is they're going to be on the heel side, and anything the Final Testament has done or touched recently isn't exactly lighting the world on fire.
No. Ben Callanan with a 799. Hey, JD and Jason, showing support from Sydney, Australia. Love the show, guys. Ben, appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Michelle with a $5 super chat. Kudos for Drew for jobbing. I agree. Doing the deed in Scotland, man. Love it. He even knows the story is bigger than a victory. The hottest feud in wrestling right now. Punk looks to be having fun. The most important thing, Michelle, having fun. If he ain't having fun, what's the point?
Yeah, Drew is a featured performer. He's arguably in the top feud right now, if not in the entire company, certainly on Monday nights. It's not like he's in a bad position.
Alucard with another $4.99. Thank you, bro. Rumors of bad blood taking place in Atlanta, October 5th, 27th anniversary. If it's true, I'll be there. That's a good one to go to, man. Everybody loves a Hell in a Cell. Good Hell in a Cell. Oh my goodness, Jesus Christ! What am I reading here? Demeter Bullion, Punky with a 799. Look at this fucking message. J Dog Han, Solo Monster, bruh, the old two-turn. One of my faves was Maria Kanellis turning on The Undertaker. She got a new manager instead of Taker, Maven.
Let me ask you a question. Do you drug test these people before they come to your stream?
No, I don't. I don't know.
You probably should. You might want to have some kind of policy that you put in place here.
Demeter, thank you. I don't know what you're on, man, but you make me laugh every time, man. Thank you. Dwayne with a $100 super chat. Thank you, brother. With this TNT tournament going on, where's Miro, Lance Archer, Jay White, Danny Garcia? Jay White's another one who should be in the Owen. I don't know why he's not there, but Claudio is in there. To me, this tournament is just to give Jack Perry the TNT title. Poor excuse for a tournament. This tournament was thrown together and not planned or thought out. Dwayne, first of all, thank you for the $100 super chat. B, there is no tournament for the TNT title. It's just a collection of matches to get a spot in a ladder match at Forbidden Door. But yes, it's all being set up for Jack Perry to win the title and to make the Elite stronger. That's all it is.
Yeah, and Miro is still hurt. That's why he's not in.
Beyond the Script with a $4.99. What's up, JD and Jason? Tell Jesse Biden fell asleep 2 days in a row now. Sorry, my friend. Trump 24. OTS for life. Keep up the good work, Jason. Thank you, Beyond the Script. You're entitled to have your opinion. Even though your opinion probably doesn't resonate with many people. But thank you, brother. Regis Cook with a $5 super chat. Idea to shake up Money in the Bank. Cash-ins to have a full match that main events. If you lose, Rumble spot is sacrificed. Maybe redemption story in loss. No.
Yeah, overcomplicating it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no need for that. I mean, I get it. Like, there are people who think that the Money in the Bank concept is played out. I kind of feel that way too. But now you're just making it more complicated, which is just not necessary. All
right, my question to you is, do you feel Triple H did the King of the Ring right this year? Did he kind of make up for some of the shitty ones that we've seen under Vince?
Oh, I mean, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think we'll see, because Money in the Bank went away.
It's a low bar. Did you see some of the more recent King of the Rings under Vince?
I mean, well,
I'll give Triple H credit, but I mean, it's a pretty low fucking bar that we've set here.
And Money in the Bank was the same way. It went to shit under Vince. I mean, he didn't have any creative plans for any of the winners. I mean, you could see just by some of the instant cash-ins the night of the show. So hopefully there's a plan this year. I think Triple H, with what he did with King of the Ring, is going to do the same thing with Money in the Bank. Michelle with the 2. Do you keep Seth face or turn him heel by September? Seth is staying face. When we get that Punk Seth Rollins match, I think Punk is going to be the heel and Seth is going to be the babyface. Gold Standard with a $5 super chat. The Elite storyline has been a dud, very embarrassing for all empty seat wrestling. And also, rest in peace, Willie Mays. I did not know that. Did Willie pass away?
No, I think so. There were people in the chat who were mentioning it.
Oh boy.
I think it came in during the stream.
Oh boy.
But I haven't checked it. I'm gonna check and see, but there were enough people saying it that I think it is true.
Gold Standard also with a $5 super chat. Roman will be at Money in the Bank. It cost Seth Rollins the world title. No. He has nothing to do with that title.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, so the story here, he did die.
Oh,
93 years old.
93?
Had a hell of 93. Had a hell of a life.
Yeah.
Hell of a life.
Ali with a $9.99. Like you said on your Monday Night Raw podcast, JD, about Uncle Howdy Wrestling, he should have the mask off and wrestle. That also goes for his group as well when they wrestle at some point. I agree, Ali. Yes, absolutely. Though I could see Bo wrestling in the mask. The mask is, it's not too overbearing. It's covering half of his face, so we could see his facial expressions at least through the mask. So
yeah, it's different when you're wearing, a Ramblin' Rabbit mask or a gas mask, which I think is what I guess it would have been Gacy. I think was wearing the gas mask.
Yep.
That's different. I mean, if Rowan is going to go out there and wrestle in a giant rabbit costume, that's not going to work. I'm sorry.
I hope to God not.
That's just not going to. Remember when we had the Easter Bunny in the company?
Yeah.
They were doing the bunny gimmick with Adam Rose.
Yeah.
Did we ever get a reveal?
No.
Was it? No, we didn't, did we?
No.
I didn't think so.
20-minute promo with 16 months. Thank you, brother. Wyatt6 felt more like a take on the Firefly family from House of 1,000 Corpses. If we are doing horror, we need slasher style, not poltergeist. Listen, man, Jason's the horror guy here. I'm not too big into the genre, but I'm into the supernatural, paranormal shit. I'm not into the horror.
Yeah, if you're looking for Rob Zombie, House of 1,000 Corpses level gore, you're not going to get that on USA Network.
No.
You're not going to get that on Fox.
Maybe on Netflix, but...
Maybe on Netflix, but you're not... Like Fox, where they bleep the audio whenever somebody says the word ass. Yeah, you're not going to get that level of gore and violence on these actual shows, which is why they left it to your imagination. You didn't actually see anything violent happening. You just saw the aftermath.
Well, God forbid the Wyatt6 show up on SmackDown. The whole fucking segment will be a black screen.
They'll mute the audio. It'll be
fucking
a black
ridiculous.
screen.
David M. with a $100 super chat. Thank you, David. Appreciate you, brother. It won't work. Nice seeing you guys. I think you mean the Wyatt6. He says it won't work. And we'll see. Like Jason said, he made a good point. You get to 6 weeks and these guys are being on television every single week. It's going to fucking die 1,000 deaths. They got to be a special attraction. For sure. With a plan. A. Jackson with a $4.99. Seems like they are only targeting people who betrayed someone in their groups. Could be hella wrong, but Imperium to Vinci, Gable to the Alpha Academy. That's a good point. I could see them doing that and being like, what would you call that? That would be like righting the wrongs of others, I guess. Karma coming back to everybody that did wrong to other people.
Yeah, but again, people are making a lot of assumptions about all of these people that were laid out in the back that they thought looked like Gunther and Carmelo. People think Carmelo Hayes was one of the people who was laid out in the back, and he would fit that because, of what he did to Trick Williams. So that, I think people are coming up with narratives that aren't there. The only person I think I saw somebody who looked like Braun Strowman on the ground.
Me too.
And Braun apparently came
I thought
out
it was
and said
Triple H.
Yeah, and apparently it wasn't Braun. So the only person that I could actually identify for sure, not even Dominic. People thought Dominic was the one who was laying on the ground in the gorilla position. It was just Gable. I can't say for sure that any of the other people were any of these names being thrown around. So none of them have been confirmed, as far as I know.
And listen, with the way the camera lingered on Gable, who knows if it's part of a plan? Maybe it is. We'll see. That's the whole beauty of it.
This is what I said earlier, where he could use this as a way to guilt trip Otis and the Academy back back into the fold. Hey, you guys weren't there. Look what happened. I needed you, and you weren't there for me.
A. Jackson, thank you for the good question, brother. Appreciate it. David M. $100 super chat from David M. Another one. Undertaker and Kane worked because they both had each other to do it to each other. You can't have one supernatural character. That's why Bray failed. You need two opposing supernaturals to make it work. Yeah. It was also the late 90s, which that was more acceptable now then than it is now. So I don't really see no supernatural stuff, man. The Undertaker and Kane are the extent of it, and that is it. Really. Phil with a $9.99. It seems like everyone that the Wyatt 6 attack were people that have turned on their family. I'm excited for what's to come, but like I said, WWE has to allow them to seek out their vision. TNT for life. Yeah, a lot of people are picking up on that, Phil. We will see if that is the direction that they go in. Some of these sleuths online with this Wyatt family lore, I mean, they spend countless hours just dissecting everything that has been thrown at us. So if that's what they are uncovering, I would not be shocked, honestly. Oh my God, Issa. You had 34 months. The NYC Demon Diva just wanted to show some love for two of my favorites in the wrestling YouTube game. Keep killing it, boys. Cheers, Issa.
Shout out to Issa.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Hope you are well. Drink soon, maybe, when you're back in town. James Brown with a new membership. James, thank you, man. Demeter Bullion with a $3.99. He leaves me a hey you emoji. Thank you. Beyond the Script with a $4.99. He says, with the last Raw on USA, curious, will there be a major cliffhanger, and what do you think it would be? I don't necessarily think they need a cliffhanger from the last show on USA to transition to Netflix. I mean, as long as we get The Rock on that first Netflix show, I'm all good.
Yeah, they're going to load up that first show, just like they're going to load up the first NXT on CW.
Yep.
Now, it's going to be the same thing. SmackDown's going to USA. So I don't know that they need a cliffhanger from one network to the other. They just got to load up that first Netflix show. Wouldn't be surprised if they put like a big pay-per-view caliber main event on there. Like you said, have The Rock make an appearance. They're going to go all in. I mean, look, so what was it, $5 billion deal? I mean, and they're going to be going weekly live, which is something Netflix has never done before. It's a big deal. So they're gonna want that to be a success.
Can't wait, man. 3 hours, 2 hours, we don't know yet, but hopefully it's not 3.
I would love for it to be 2, but I have every expectation that they're not paying $5 billion for an hour less per week of content.
That breaks my heart. We'll see.
That's just how I feel.
Jack Lancy with a $5 super chat. What's with the disrespect of us Scots in WWE this week? First McIntyre, now Hendry. I can't believe it. I tell you, man, there's an agenda out for you guys. What can I tell you?
Well, you won the women's tag team titles, though.
Yeah.
So they gave you that, at least. Yeah.
Yeah, listen. They don't believe in Joe Hendry, man. What can I tell you?
Those very valuable, highly sought after women's tag team titles.
Love them. Can't wait to see more of them. So nobody ever. Though I like Isla Dawn. I think Isla Dawn was great, and Kaylee Ray was always a quality in-ring talent. But the division's dead. What do you want me to say? They're going nowhere.
Nothing against them. I mean, look, I've been crowing about the titles long before they won them.
Drizzy Drew with a $1.99. We did cover the Undertaker comments. Jason mentioned that a little bit ago. Thank you, Drizzy. Dwayne Jackson with a $20 super chat. Hey, JD and Solomons, regarding AEW Forbidden Door's concept, what changes would you make to Forbidden Door to make it more interesting and exciting? And what the fuck are you guys drinking? Tonight I had nothing but coffee, Dwayne, and I don't know, Jason, what do you think? Forbidden Door concept, it's going to get increasingly difficult for Tony Khan to keep it original and unique, and the more we get into it and the more matches he blows through, I don't know how he's going to keep it special. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, I mean, this year they're including some CMLL talent and Stardom, like Mina is from Stardom. Yep. So they're trying to mix in more than just New Japan. I think if you're going to have a show called Forbidden Door, then it makes sense to try to bring some other promotions into it. You'll always have that New Japan connection. And then it just becomes a challenge of trying to find matches that are fresh every year. Instead of kind of recycling the same faces over and over again, that becomes the challenge. But look, every year that goes by, it just sort of like, it loses a little bit of luster because at first it was such a novel concept, and we got to see these matches because they still had some of these big names that are in AEW now were in New Japan at the time. And so there were some legitimate dream matches that people wanted to see. And now it's like Okada came over, Ospreay came over, Jay White came over. You still got Naito and Shingo and Tanahashi on the New Japan side, but it just, that same feeling, it's just, not that this won't be an enjoyable show, but I think there was a novelty to it that just isn't there now. This is what, number 3?
Yeah.
I think that they've done. Yeah, and it just, that's what's going to happen. The more of them that they do, you can try to come up with some fresh ideas. I don't know if you can, we may get some Owen matches, for example, on the show this year, but I'm trying to figure out if there's a way that you can have stakes of some kind that coming out of the show would factor into AEW storylines and New Japan storylines, let's say, independent of each other.
Yeah.
But that's not what Forbidden Door is. Forbidden Door is supposed to be us against them.
It's like, the MLB All-Star game.
Yeah. And the All-Star game, frankly, doesn't mean what it used to. I feel like it's the same thing. It's not even just a wrestling thing. Like, just as time goes on, it's just natural that it's going to lose some of its appeal.
Hey, listen, ticket sales are strong. I got the numbers pulled up here. 9,900 in total, and AEW sold nearly 8,500. So UBS Arena is going to be rocking and rolling. As soon as it starts not to sell well, then you'll start to see the appropriate changes. But right now, they're looking at a hopeful sellout, or close to it. So we'll see. Drizzy Dwayne rocks with a 199. Started watching you both in 2016. Well wishes. Rocks. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Thank you, Rocks.
Francis Loop with a $10 super chat. It seems like Takeshita is not a priority in the Don Callis family now that Stokely Hathaway, Statlander, and Trent Beretta are in. I would take Takeshita out of there and pair him with Hikaru Shida. Okay.
Shida.
Don't know why you would do that, and I don't think Stokely's in the Don Callis family, is he?
No, he's got his own thing going on.
Francis, I think you're a little loopy there. No pun intended.
What the fuck are you drinking, Francis? That's what I want to know.
I don't know, Francis.
I don't know.
M. Mills with a 10. No message. Thank you, M. Mills.
Thank you, M. Mills. Thank you very much.
BW Roses with a $2 super chat. Your memories of Willie Mays, who passed today. I don't know if I have any. You have any memories of Willie?
No, not nothing specific. I mean, a lot of his legendary success he was before my time, so I can't say that there's anything on a personal level about him that stands out to me as far as like a memory or a specific game or anything like that. But obviously, I mean, the life and career that he had and the impact he had on the game speaks for itself. 93 years old, and even though he lived a full life, it's still sad whenever you hear about, someone from that generation passing away. Unfortunately, as time goes on, we lose more and more, players like that.
Rest in peace, Willie Mays. Jesus Christ. Demeter Bullion with a 99 cents. His name now, I don't know how he keeps changing his names unless he just switches from account to account. Demeter Bullion, I am very naughty boy with sock ears. No message. Thank you, Demeter. I'm going to drug test, screen test, whatever. Whatever test at the door before you get it, man. I don't know what your problem is.
I feel like this is like some of these Wyatt clues that we were getting on tele. Like, I feel like I should scan a QR code and then one of his super chats would be what comes up, and I have to try to decipher what it means.
Mike 43 with a $2 super chat. Vic Joseph said he slept with one eye open. As he should. He sleeps next to Mackenzie Mitchell. I don't know why he would sleep with... Well, actually, I could see why he would sleep with one eye open, but
I'd sleep with both eyes open if I were him. Good for him.
Boots with a $5 super chat. In the first 6 months of 2024, who has been the male and female MVP for AEW and WWE? Ooh, good question. I'll let you go first. Female talent in AEW is absolutely Toni Storm.
Were we talking for this year?
Yeah, in 2024. First 6 months of 24, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, first 6 months of 2024 would have to be timeless Toni Storm.
Yep. For the men over there, I would say Swerve. Either him or Ospreay.
Yeah, because Ospreay came in February
Yeah.
and he kind of took the whole company by storm. I would tend to go towards Ospreay.
I'm not going to argue that.
Yeah.
WWE for the men, you know, that's tough.
I probably would. I was gonna. I want to.
I want to say Cody.
Yeah, I mean Cody's up there. We're talking first 6 months of the year.
You know what? Fuck that. I'm going to go Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, I think I would agree.
And for the women, that's probably even tougher, man. It's tough. Rhea Ripley's not there.
Yeah, Rhea Ripley wasn't having very many matches.
No.
At all.
I'm going to say EO.
Yeah, that's tough. Bailey.
Okay.
Because, she just going into the Royal Rumble and then winning the Rumble, she's had like no momentum coming out of WrestleMania. But going into WrestleMania, I feel like the stars were aligned for her. And she got her big moment in January. She got her big moment at WrestleMania. So I'll go Bailey.
Boots, that's a very good question. Thank you. Francis Loop with a $5 super chat. I liked the ending of Collision. I just lost your minute. I like the ending of Collision. The Bullet Club, Pac, House of Black, and the Patriarchy all in the final 5 minutes. Stories being created. Yeah, and in the midst of that, I don't know if this is a work or a shoot. I don't know what the fuck's going on, but Buddy Matthews might have been injured. I don't know if that's real.
I saw something about that. I haven't seen like an actual legitimate report about it, so I don't know what his status is.
Yes, the Patriarchy wants the trios titles, so that's where we're going. We'll see. I'd rather them have it than fucking the Acclaimed or whoever. Maybe they win, maybe they win it and hold one set of titles instead of 3.
I thought Christian was going to announce that he was going to be in the Owen.
I don't see why he wouldn't be. Again, like you said before, I don't know why everybody's not lining up to be in the Owen.
Yeah, but again, I'm just trying to use logic here and tie it into what we've seen on TV. Didn't Christian go back to the Bucks and say he wanted a rematch, and they said that they couldn't give it to him, but let's keep in touch. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Like he wanted another opportunity for the title. I'm just pointing these things out, and I get shit on for it. But like, again, why? You know what? Why?
Don't even bother, man. I mean, Tony Khan's got fucking amnesia. Whatever.
Why?
The Juliet 316 with a $2 super chat. Rest in peace, legend Willie Mays. Absolutely. Sad news tonight. Hidden Network 125. Whatever currency this is. I wish YouTube would tell me. I'm curious how the Wyatt Sick6 group wrestle in the ring with the talent and create beautiful storytelling to make this work. That's going to be the test. We'll see what happens. Jack Lancy with a 5. I bet Gable's going to have to start taking painkillers because of the injuries from the attack, and we can officially get Perk Gable in WWE. Do we really want that?
No, we don't want that. That was everybody talks about Perk Gable or Perk Angle, and it's funny to go back and look at some of those things, and he had some incredible matches even during that period. But when you really stop and think about it, like that was probably him at his lowest, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
And I'm just happy that he's in a much healthier place now than he was then. But it's incredible that despite everything that he was probably on and the pain he was in, he was still a beast. I mean, he was a machine back then. It's not like the quality of his work diminished in any way. I don't know how he did it, but yeah, that was probably him at his lowest in his life.
Big G in the chat says, you're making too much sense, Solo. Listen, Big G, you make too much sense in this community. You're labeled as public enemy number 1. So.
Yeah, you get a target on your back when you start doing that.
Everybody's favorite super chat here. Demeter Bullying is back. His name now with a 99-cent super chat. Thank you, Demeter. His name is Funky Ducky. This your boy Dem. Here now from you. I don't know why I was going to say hard, but yard. I got to get the fuck out of here, man. I'm thinking
what's
Bullet
on your
Club.
mind?
Juice
What's
Robinson, apparently. He's
still thinking about that Liv Morgan key card from last week.
Yeah, Lucky Balor, huh? Brent Amania with a $2 super chat. Enjoy your take on pro wrestling. Stay legendary. Thank you, Brent. Blue Devil 631 with a 199. What is the worst Raw ending you've ever seen? This is a WTNT. Thank you, brother. We'll be here all night trying to think of that, but I'm sure Vince was a part of it. What was the worst Raw ending?
You know, there have been so many of them that they kind of blend together. I don't know if I could think of one that stands out above the rest. I mean, there have been some very boring endings, and there have been some angles I know over the years they've done that have had kind of let down reveals. I'm trying to think of what I would go with. I think some of them I try to tune out, quite frankly. Can you think of any from that period we were talking about before? 2018, 2019?
No.
Any that stand out from that period?
No, I tried my best to forget everything that happened then.
Yeah, honestly. I mean, there are things I could think of. I wouldn't call it an ending. I don't think it ended Raw, but like Bobby Lashley and his sisters and stuff with Constable Corbin or Constipated Corbin, whatever it was.
This is your life, Bailey.
Yeah, but again, these weren't endings of the show.
No.
I don't know. And I try not to go back and think about it.
The higher power, it was me, Austin?
The higher power did not end the show. That was not the show closing ending.
Oh, the Lana Bobby Lashley wedding. That was pretty fucking bad.
Oh, yes. That's right. That's right. Who popped out of the cake? Was it Rusev?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he got cucked.
I don't even think that was the worst, but that was pretty bad. I know there have been worse. I mean,
that's a whole fucking show for just that topic alone.
Oh my God. Get a 4-hour TNT out of that one.
Dwayne Jackson with a $20 super chat. Thank you for your generosity, Dwayne. We really appreciate it. With AEW possibly getting new TV, if they get a new TV deal, is it a possibility that Dynamite might go from 2 to 3 hours? Would that hurt or help AEW? Dwayne, I think Jason and I are absolutely against a 3-hour Dynamite. No.
It could absolutely happen. But yes, I think it would be more harmful than not. I don't think it's necessary.
Anthony with a $4.99. Great show, guys. With WWE bringing back Bad Blood potentially, which of these would you bring back? Cyber Sunday, No Way Out, or No Mercy? No Mercy. NXT. Well, No Mercy is an NXT pay-per-view right now, or PLE. No Way Out is Elimination Chamber, and Cyber Sunday never really worked because.
Yeah, but what? Triple H can take it back.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, Sean, we take talent from you all the time. We're taking No Mercy back.
The one I always wanted on the main roster, now we got War Games, was Halloween Havoc, yes.
Halloween Havoc, yeah. I still can't understand that. Now, from what I understand, there might have been an issue for a while there over the ownership of the name, like the IP. I don't know how true that is, because I can never figure it out. I always thought that was a cool name and a cool concept for a show.
Yep.
And you could do like this really decorative Halloween set and everything else, and I just could never understand why do they not bring that to the main roster.
Man, when I played those old WCW games on Nintendo 64, I loved the Halloween Havoc aesthetics. I thought it was great.
Yeah. Well, even those shows with the giant pumpkin and they would have like the tombstones and everything. It was just tailor made for its own show, and kind of like War Games, NXT took it first.
And we got this last one here from the Learning Sicko, Dr. Bropio, with a $2 super chat.
Dr. Bropio. I know Dr. Bropio. He's on my stream.
He says, hi, guys. Respect Chris Jericho, guys. Thanks, guys. No, thank you. Jesus Christ. You know, we're getting fucking the Learning Tree for his private party tomorrow.
We are. Which actually might not be bad, because that means we're not getting TV time. We're not going to get a bunch of talking segments. At least a match I could tolerate.
Good point. PD Shaw TMF, 40 months. Thank you, brother. As always, enjoy the show. It's for life. Thank you, PD. And Furious Nation with a $4.99. What's up, JD and Solomon? With Drew McIntyre quitting, do you see this leading to Drew being traded to SmackDown for AJ Styles? Thoughts? No.
He's going to be wherever.
How about Baron Corbin? I had to say.
You and Baron. I still haven't forgotten your fucking Wolf Dogs reunion idea. So you sit there and you keep quiet. No, they're not going to put Drew McIntyre on a show that doesn't have CM Punk. So that is not going to happen.
There you go. Furious Nation, thank you, brother, for the $5 super chat. And thank you guys for a great show, man. Jason and I are getting out of here. And as always, he starts the show, and I'm going to have him sign off, man. What do you got before we get out of here?
Well, what I got is, it's nice to see there being so many different things going on. I said this at the beginning, and I'll say it again, on Monday Night Raw. Coming out of that show last night, everybody's going to be talking about the Wyatt Six, but there were no less than 4 or 5 different things going on the show, like stories and returns and things playing itself out. And, we were just asked a question about the worst endings to Raw, like, ever. And I still remember that awful period of mostly terrible Raw shows. And they're not all perfect now. But I am very happy that we have a period here where Monday Night Raw has... And I think if you might agree with me on this, I think on most weeks, Raw probably has gone from what used to be the worst show of the week to being the best show of the week on a lot of weeks.
It is.
It is. And I'm grateful for that.
Look at the roster they have. Incredible roster, especially in that fucking middle of the card. I mean, you're looking at the future right there.
But again, it's not an easy thing to do when you have 3 hours of television every single week instead of 2. I still feel like 2 is better than 3. But I'm just happy that we have a lot of different stories playing itself out. Raw right now feels more interesting than it has in a very long time. So I'm enjoying it while it lasts. Hopefully it will continue through the summer.
Absolutely. Guys, thank you very much for episode 53. We'll be back next week, same time, episode 54. We will discuss what you guys love, and that is professional wrestling. Thank you guys very much for everything tonight. We hit 1,250 likes. We had upwards towards 2,800 people live in here. Jason and I really appreciate it. And as always, if you guys want the content, go check out Jason and subscribe to his YouTube and follow him on social media. Everything you need is linked down below in the description. And please make sure you guys continue to hit that thumbs up even after the video publishes. Helps us out tremendously. We'll both be live for AEW Dynamite tomorrow as we are heading into the Forbidden Door. Until next week, guys, take care, and we'll see you later.